Owens, she's a grifter indeed, preaching crystal fascist views to mislead, twisting truth, planting deceit, exploiting fear for her own greed. A dangerous game she plays. Girl, spreading lies like a wall with a toxic tongue, her words unfurl, manipulating hearts in a twisted swirl. Girl, a devious pearl. Through the podcast she spews her hate, twisting narratives, sealing their fate. For fame and fortune she can't wait, but the truth will always negate. Beware her charm, it's a guise. Girl, spreading lies like a wall with a toxic tongue, her words unfurl, manipulating hearts in a twisted swirl. Girl, a devious pearl. Go up, girl, spreading lies like a whirl with a toxic tongue, her words unfurl, manipulating hearts in a twisted swirl. Go up, girl, a devious pearl. Go up, girl. Devious pearl. Girl, spreading lies like a wall with a toxic tongue, her words unfurl, manipulating hearts in a twisted swirl. Go up, girl, a devious pearl. Go up, girl, spreading lies like a wall with a toxic tongue, her words unfurl, manipulating hearts in a twisted swirl. Go up, girl, a devious pearl.
All right, so y'all just heard the indie Gish Gallop Girl theme. We just listened to it separately. I'm going to mix it in later. But welcome to Gish Gallop Girl, the show where I, Thomas Anderson, and my son,
Matthew Anderson,
we explore the work of one Candace Owens. Why? Because there's probably a little bit of me that hates myself, but there's also to the broader benefit of society, I would like to think.
Yeah.
Now, last week, as we explained, we kind of skipped out a little bit on doing the blackout exploration. Well, we are back into it this week, but it's only going to be for a few pages of what is a 20-page chapter. This is going to take a couple extra weeks to get through because I really wanted to focus more on her show content. And as we move forward, we're going to focus more and more on that over time. But anything you want to add for the week?
Not that I can really think of, no.
Okay, well, if anything comes up, you know what to do.
Yep.
Just talk.
Yeah.
Fucking talk. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
You don't have to raise a hand. This isn't class.
It's force of habit.
All right, so we are back into Blackout for this first section. Blackout Chapter 5. The chapter is subtitled On Socialism and Government Handouts.
Huh.
Yeah, so as the title of this chapter implies, Candace is against all forms of what she would call welfare, but anyone that has had to apply for assistance with the fundamentals of life would have a different outlook. I say this even as a person that has had to apply for assistance in the past and been denied it for a number of reasons. I'm not bitter about it now, and I wasn't bitter about it when it happened. I just found a way to get beyond it. The last time I applied for assistance, my family had only recently left a homeless shelter, and we were in an apartment on the west side of Jacksonville. It wasn't a great place, but it was ours. Anyway, shortly into our time living there, I was fired from my job as a waiter after catching one of the important people in the place that had been stealing for some time. That person was higher up the chain than me, and I was let go. They would go on to serve serious jail time.
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck that dude.
Well, if memory serves, he was skimming off the top, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, for years.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had a couple of restaurants, and dude was skimming hard. But here's the fucked up thing with that: I had been busting waiters and bartenders for this family for a long time.
Yeah.
And so we had gone to Portland, Oregon, which we talked about a little bit on the last episode. We'd gone to Portland, Oregon, and we came back to Jacksonville, and So yeah, I wound up getting back into the same place, which was a fucking miracle.
Yeah.
Because finding work in Portland was pretty fucking hard, even with my skill set at the time. So, we get back into Jacksonville. I get back into my old restaurant. Like, they hired me from over the internet. They were like, oh shit, you want to come back? It's only been 3 months. Yeah, come on back.
Yeah.
Well, going back there, the owner of the place had split management duties with his brother.
Mm-hmm.
And it was his brother who was skimming.
Yeah.
Well, because I had busted waiters and bartenders before, the guy knew I was a threat.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was just a matter of time until I caught him.
Yeah.
Well, I had taught a couple of people. When I came back, I was like, look, you want to know how I busted your friends? Because most of them had known people that I had fucking busted. I was like, look, you want to know how I busted your friends? This is exactly how I did it. And I showed them.
Yeah.
So when I got booted, they went on the revenge path.
Mm-hmm.
And they noticed he was doing all the shit that I had warned them to look out for.
Yeah.
And because he was higher up, though, he was able to let at least one of them go. But the other guy was someone who I had introduced to Linux computing, and he busted the bastard. I had, by that point, it had been several months, and I had heard about it when I passed by them. I was on, my bicycle one day going into work at a much better fucking place, and I had passed by the Linux guy, and he was like, let me tell you what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had been given a no trespass warrant
Oh.
for the place. They wanted me not coming back around there whatsoever.
Yeah.
The guy really worked hard to get me the fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, I back and forth with this dude, and he was like, yeah, man, so I did, I looked at everything. He's like, and then I built my case in the background. And he was like, yeah, we busted him, and he's going to jail for serious time.
Yeah.
And he's like, the funny thing is, his kids who were adults, they were adults that worked with us in the place. He's like, his kids aren't angry at me for it, they're angry at you. And I was like, he wasn't even here. He works across the river at a much better spot, He's like, I don't know what's up with that family, dude. I was like, neither do I, but, fuck them. Their dad's a jailbird.
Yeah.
I was like, I trust you built a solid enough case that, there was no appealing it. He's like, oh, no. He's like, he fucked up, too. He wound up saying a bunch of shit that we had witnesses for on top of it. We got him drunk one night, and he started loose-lipping, and, I was like, wow, all right.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, several years pass. I go back down there looking for a job again because my warrant has run out. It was only for a year.
Yeah.
Well, a few years pass, and I go back down there looking for a job, and I talked to the original owner of the place, and he's like, man, it's slow right now. And he wasn't lying. I talked to other people before I even talked to him. They're like, you can talk to him, but it's really fucking slow.
Yeah.
All right. So I go and talk to him. He's like, yeah, no, man, it's slow right now. I was like, okay, understood. You have my number.
Mm-hmm.
I never got a call, but I really didn't expect one. I mean,
yeah.
It was what it was. But yeah, fuck that guy. But, like I said, getting back into it.
Yeah.
So, anyway, shortly into our time living there, I was fired from my job as a waiter after catching one of the important people in the place. So that guy went on to serve serious jail time. Anyway, in the in-between, I applied for assistance. We applied, of course, for food help, rent help, and whatever we could do. However, my family, my birth family that I hadn't spoken to in years, came up in the information scraping, and we were told that because they had money, we weren't eligible. While we were waiting for word, I did day labor jobs, and we barely scraped by, and I took any interview I could get. Fortunately, I wound up through sheer luck in a better place than the last place I worked, and we were able to catch up on everything. When we got denied, I didn't like it, but it was explained to me in a way that I could understand. My neighbors that were on assistance programs were angrier than we were. They were angry for us. But we took it in stride. I am fortunate that I was able to work and interview and get my family in better situations. Not everyone can, and our neighbors were in various states of disablement. They needed what would have been temporary for us, and I didn't look down on them for getting what they needed. So when people like Candace say the following, quote, when dealing with the black community, the concept of goodness has become synonymous with free stuff, it kind of makes my blood boil. I knew several black families during that time period, and we all helped each other. No one treated my family any different because of the color of our skin. We were definitely not black, even though I do tan super well. But they invited us to barbecue parties, drank and smoked with us, and our kids played together. You get the idea. These people all struggled the same as we did, and the ones who got assistance hated the hoops they had to jump through to maintain it. But they also often couldn't go without it, as little as it often was, unless they were receiving a very good promotion or bump in pay at their jobs. I have serious doubts that since she was moved away from a rough neighborhood at the age of 9, that Candace ever really interacted with any of her old neighbors in the years since that happened. I say this because her take on social programs reads almost exactly like the people I often worked with that couldn't tell you where rough neighborhoods even were in Jacksonville, and there were several. Anyway, back to the meat of this book. Candace mentions a 2004 analysis of FDR's New Deal, but it isn't in her notes section in the book, which of course flagged it for me. I had to go on a search of such things being published in 2004. My best guess is that she was talking about the paper titled New Deal Policies and the Persistence of the Great Depression, a General Equilibrium Analysis. Basically, it posits that the policies pursued by FDR made the Great Depression longer than it had to be. Given that, I don't see why it wasn't included in the notes section, since, of all things, it supports her argument. Anyway, the paper has been a subject of debate for the last 20 years, with people arguing against it being an oversimplification of how life actually was in the 1930s, and why the New Deal policies were the way they were. I think, if I had to guess, Candace doesn't want people finding this on their own because the authors of the piece acknowledge that the creation of Social Security and bank reforms were ultimately good concepts that had good execution, which works against Candace's worldview. Candace uses this study to argue that the establishment of minimum wage laws, hurt black Americans that were seen as unskilled labor, and it hurt other poor Americans as well. But there were industries, such as farming, of course, that were excluded from the minimum wage structure. The establishment of a minimum wage has been a combined alt-right, libertarian, and general Republican talking point for decades. They bitch every time it is about to be raised, whether it is local or federal, and they always say that it hurts businesses and also hurts poor people, often without citing evidence as to what exactly that is, and often in the face of very real issues such as rent increases, food increases, and so on. I don't like the blanket term of inflation because it's easy to wipe away the fact that real people are hurt by the economy every day in ways that those who could afford to pay them more simply aren't hurt. Candace toes the line like a good alt-right soldier, though. She says that unions refused membership to black workers, and this is true. Most unions in the trades didn't allow for black members, but some black trade unions were established, which Candace doesn't mention. Instead, she talks about how labor laws made it harder for black persons to find work since they couldn't negotiate taking a lower wage to be employed. She goes on to discuss how black farmhands were forced off of land that the government was paying landowners not to farm, as they tried to create market scarcity on certain goods to raise prices back up to boost the economy. This happened, and it did affect the lives of minority workers and poor white workers, but it hurt the black workers more by far, since they found employment harder to get in general. Candace goes on to claim that the landslide victory of FDR in 1936 is surprising to her, as according to her, Roosevelt had done little and actually harmed black Americans with his policies. What she fails to mention is that FDR informed the American people on progress within the administration during weekly radio addresses, which she called fireside chats. He consulted with black leaders on issues that needed addressing, and he issued an executive order that forced racial integration into the U.S. military. She straight up lies when she says, FDR consistently pandered to racist Southern Democrats and refused to rock the congressional boat by introducing legislation that would tackle racism head on. FDR did far more for black Americans than anyone since Lincoln had done, and it should be noted that the Republicans had done little to nothing after the end of the failed Reconstruction period for black citizens. Candace claims that, quote, as Democrats build out platforms pledging to give black people more stuff, reparations, free health care, student loan forgiveness, free college tuition, etc., they prey upon the same vulnerabilities and frustrations that Eleanor Roosevelt did with the same tacit understanding that their policies will do nothing to alter the situation. Their strategy is to feign sympathy and friendship with zero intent of transforming circumstances. Perhaps more worrisome is the fact that their push for government solutions has grown increasingly more ambitious. They now openly advocate for transforming all of America into a socialist state." End quote. This is demonstrably incorrect. Even when this book was written, very few Democrats or independents were actually pushing for reparations. As for free health care and everything else she mentioned, those things aren't being put on the table for just black Americans. They are on the table for everyone. She goes on to claim, quote, "According to a recent Gallup poll, only 47% of Democrats view capitalism favorably, while a mind-blowing 57% are in favor of socialism, the abhorrent political system that would abolish private property, transform the government into an all-powerful dictatorship, and otherwise destroy everything great about this economy." End quote. To which almost anyone can point to socialist countries that have been making it work for decades, where people still have private property, their votes matter, and they are some of the happiest people in the world, such as most of the countries in Scandinavia. Candace goes on to claim that socialism destroys countries with the next section titled, quote, "A Brief History of Socialism." And we will pick up on that next week. Thoughts?
Yes, a brief history. I wonder how brief it's gonna be. What I'm curious about is if she brings up the KKK again. I swear that is just her way of like bringing everything back to a center that people can go, oh yeah. That
Here's the
makes
thing with the KKK though, the Klan isn't really about socialism.
Fair enough.
You know? They're really not.
No.
That works against a lot of their goals.
Yeah.
Because the Klan is very, very in tune with keeping the poor as poor.
Yeah.
You know, they don't want their they're the racist foot soldier arm of like the old slave owning class.
Yeah.
You know, that likes to see their their people as like, God, what would I even call it? Oh yeah, see themselves as a bit like royalty.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's why they have their fucking fancy balls and shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which they still do today.
Oh.
One of the country clubs I worked at had a debutante ball every year.
Okay.
Where all of the fancy people families would get together with their dressed up 16-year-old daughters and parade them around and whatever the fuck. Like,
yeah.
You know.
I swear that this is kind of on topic with that.
Yeah.
So, I was at work, right?
Uh-huh.
And there's this husband and wife with their kid in a stroller. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, whatever, cute kid, what have you.
Yeah.
And then this other family comes up, another husband and wife with a kid in the stroller. Mm-hmm. Come up and they go, oh, hey, yada, yada, they're conversing. They're like, oh, she's so cute, maybe she can marry our son someday. And I'm just like, okay, that's a little cringe.
That's
and then
gross.
then I hear from the family of the daughter in question go, oh, sorry, we can't do that. We already promised her to somebody else's son. And then that other group of people came up with their baby in the stroller. Like, they'd already... And they were sitting there, and they're like, well, was it already finalized in documentation? And they're like, yeah, we all signed it already.
Oh, my God.
And I'm like, wait a fucking second, what? And I got so angry because I'm just like, you're telling me that y'all really just at birth and apparently before birth, the moment they knew the genders of the kids, were like, who can we marry our kid off to?
Yeah.
Ooh, let's go marry them off to the Johnsons. They're having a kid soon. And then the Johnsons just went, all right. Yeah,
it's all seemed like
marry
a
him.
tactical marriage for land and resources for the parent class.
Yeah.
And so, which is, one more reason why like people like that get so pissed off when their kids don't follow the life path they've set out for them.
Yeah.
Like we never wanted to do that to you guys. Like, that's so fucked up to do to anybody, but yeah. So Candace Show, week of July 21st to the 27th, episode 30. So it starts with the quote of the episode. I'm going to wait for you to finish that drink.
You don't want to risk me spewing Dr. Pepper everywhere?
No,
Okay.
I don't. Because the episode was titled, Is Joe Biden Dead? Yep, that is the actual title of this episode, because it's time to roll out that conspiracy theory, it seems. And with that, we play the cold open.
Alright guys, welcome. We are live again. I actually really love being this live. It's just the potential to potentially say something wrong and then ruin my entire career. I like it. It's like playing Russian roulette with my life. Anyways, you guys, a lot to talk about today. Number one, is Joe Biden in fact dead? Have you been paying attention to these conspiracy theories that are running amok on the internet? There is something there. He does seem to be missing. Is that a decoy that we just saw go down or go up Air Force One rather? Also, I'm going to be covering this Sonia Massey shooting. I don't know if you guys have seen that. You should have, because Joe Biden or whoever is running his Twitter account decided to tweet about Sonia Massey, who recently lost her life when a cop shot at her after she called 911. I'm going to weigh in on that situation. You might be surprised with what I have to say. And lastly, I would never let you guys down. Of course, we are going to talk about Kim Cheadle. She testified. I think she test-lied. All that coming up on Candace.
I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
I thought she was gonna make a comment about kimchi, the food. I didn't know there was somebody named Kim Cheadle.
Yeah, that was the former head of the Secret Service.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah, we're gonna get into all that. Yeah.
Oh wait, who's the new head then?
I don't know his name.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't care. I don't know his name yet.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Now, for those unaware, I envy your blissful state sometimes. What I mean is, this has been a conspiracy theory since before Biden took office. Usually by the kookiest of kooks, including some but not all QAnon weirdos. Anyway, as movie and stupidly pop culture centered as these people think they are, and that includes Candace, I haven't seen any of them reference the excellent movie from the 90s that starred, and I got the name wrong in the script, but it starred Sigourney Weaver and Kevin Kline. That was it. I knew there was a Kevin. I called it Kevin Spacey in the script, and just it didn't fit right, and then I realized it wasn't Kevin Spacey in that movie. It was Kevin Kline and Sigourney Weaver. Dave. And any of their conspiracy theory talk. Now, do you know anything about Dave, the movie?
I'm gonna go out on a whim here because I know I've seen a meme of it at least.
Okay.
Is it the same meme that has like it's a black panel with a red light and it just goes, "What's wrong, Dave?"
No,
that's wrong one. Okay.
That's 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
That black thing with the red light is HAL 9000. HAL
Right, yeah.
9000.
Yeah.
Totally different
The
thing.
only thing that comes to mind when I see it too is the Atlas from No Man's Sky.
Yeah.
So that really doesn't help me.
Well, No Man's Sky is self-referential back to every sci-fi, I think. But, yeah, no, Dave was a movie from the 90s, like I said, starring Kevin Kline and Sigourney Weaver. Here's the basic plot, okay? Kevin Kline gets hired to go and pretend to be the president at some function because someone realizes, like, they see him in, like, some sort of viral ad, and he can look exactly like the current sitting president.
Yeah.
So he gets hired by the president's goons, not the Secret Service, but his goons, to be the president for some event.
Okay.
Well, the actual president is off banging a secretary. He dies during the act of sex. And so Dave gets asked to be the president while the current president is in a coma. So, everyone knows that the current president had a heart attack. No one knows that he's in this coma, like deep under the White House in the hospital.
Yeah.
Like some little hospital chamber they have. So, Dave becomes the president. And because he's such a good actor, he even fools the current president's wife. Because they're not really that much of a couple. Like, they are in public view, but in the White House, like, they sleep in separate rooms and shit. She knows he's been banging secretaries.
Yeah.
Like, it's this whole thing. Well, Dave finally, like, he kind of loses himself, and he's like, I need to tell you something. And he breaks the news to her.
Yeah.
Well, they figure out a way to kill him off and take the current president off of life support.
Oh.
Because he's just a vegetable.
Yeah.
So They figure out how to do this. Dave goes back to living his life in his small town, wherever the fuck, and he decides to get into local politics as himself.
Yeah.
He's not playing the president anymore for shits and giggles. Mm-hmm. He just wants to like go be the mayor or city council member or something. It's been a long time since I've seen it. But anyway, Sigourney Weaver winds up finding him at the end of the film. Spoiler alert, it's a 20-year-old movie. Get over it. And they wind up like together.
I take it Sigourney Weaver was the wife.
The president's wife, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I have never, ever, ever heard these people reference that fucking movie.
Yeah, no.
Never. It has never come up.
I'm sure if you introduced the movie to, like...
I don't want to do that.
See, what's terrible is there's a lot of stuff that like I hear these just kooks talking about at work sometimes.
Yeah.
And I have whatever you've told me, or it just sounds so similar to a plot to a movie I've heard before, and I go, have you ever heard of such and such? And they go, no, I gotta watch that. And I'm like, oh god damn it.
What did I do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so, much like the movie Conspiracy Theory, it's curiously absent from the discourse. So is another huge 90s conspiracy theory heavy film, Wag the Dog. Now,
I don't know if I want to know.
Wag the Dog is, it's more of a drama.
Okay.
Basically, in Wag the Dog, there's a president who's not really well liked coming up for re-election, and his re-election campaigners decide to stage a war to keep him in the seat. That's the whole idea. So
yeah.
They stage a war, and they do it with some guy who apparently staged the Iraq War.
Okay.
Some film director. De Niro brings in this film director played by the Captain Hook, Mr. Megorium guy. Rain Man. Dustin Hoffman. That was it. I know if I kept saying names.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he brings in this guy to run this staged war. And so they wind up doing it. They pull it off. They stage this entire thing. They pull it off, the president gets reelected, and the guy is like, oh man, no one's going to believe me when I tell them that we pulled this off. And they're like, you can't tell anyone you did this.
Yeah.
Like, ever. You die with that secret. We all do. And, so, like, again, that film, that name of that film has never come up. I've had to look it up on IMDb over the years to be like, was that a fucking fever dream that I had? Because I've never heard anyone mention it in a long time. It did exist. It did really well. It did so well that it came out like in the middle of the Clinton years. There was some sort of like rumor of war or whatever going on, and people were showing up to like protests at the White House with great big placards that said "Wag the Dog," referencing the famous movie that had just been in theaters. That was a thing. And then, I'm sure there are others, but the only other one I can think of right now that these people never reference as well is Primary Colors. Primary Colors was a movie that starred John Travolta and a bunch of other people. And it was based on a book written by somebody who supposedly, I don't remember the full story of it. I was into it at the time, but it was, back in the 90s, so fuck it. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it had a lot of hot Hollywood actors at the time. But anyway, it was about the run-up to the Clinton presidency. Mm-hmm. Like the campaign period to him getting into office.
Okay.
Yeah. But all of the characters have different names. But the book came out in the first Clinton presidential term. And it was a hot seller. No one knew who the author was. It got a lot of press, and I don't remember who it turned out to be, but apparently the author had to have been an insider, they said, because they got a lot of shit right that only people inside
would have known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, it could be that the existence of these films, all starring major Hollywood actors and funded by major studios, and all which did well at the box office and in home video, disprove the notion that Hollywood is somehow afraid to make cinema like this. Major studios will fund anything that makes a buck. I've said all of that to remind the audience that these people don't have a finger on the pulse of pop culture, clearly, but they also often have no intelligence or real debate skills at all. The 4 movies I mentioned there, I watched many times as a kid. What I did, which I included conspiracy theory in that in case y'all weren't counting, what I did not watch much was Weekend at Bernie's, or the sequels. There were sequels to Weekend at Bernie's.
I've never even seen Weekend at Bernie's, I don't think.
Because I care about you. Weekend at Bernie's was a movie about 2 guys, I think they're like office jockeys living in New York City, and they're either friends or one of their bosses is a guy named Bernie. Again, 90s, fuck it. Mm-hmm. But anyway, saw it once, good enough.
Yeah.
Any rate, they go to visit Bernie at his, like, island getaway home in, like, the Bahamas or some shit, and he's dead.
Oh.
And they spend the entire movie propping up this dead guy, walking around with him, speaking for him. Mm-hmm. Like, they put, like, sunglasses on him. And, like, they put Bernie in situations like he's skiing.
Yeah.
And stuff. Like, they strap his hands to, like, to the ski handles. And they put skis on his feet, and so he's skiing and stuff. They've got a corpse. They're dragging a corpse, like, literal corpse around. Mm-hmm. The entire film. So, there were sequels to that. There's a Weekend at Bernie's, too. There shouldn't be. It's not good.
I don't know how you... Like, maybe if you made it, like, a Weekend at Sandra's or something, changed up who the corpse was, then maybe,
I think the third one changes it up, but I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, they used the same corpse for the second movie?
Yeah. Weekend at Bernie's, too. How could you not?
How do you... I don't think
it did well.
How do you reuse the second...
The third one might have been direct-to-video, I'm not sure. But I know it exists.
That would make sense.
Yeah. So even to a child, the premise was funny the first time.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was horrifying if you thought about it for a single second.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, that movie did really well. Candace commenters often compare Biden to Weekend at Bernie's and never seem to bring up the other films when I bother to lurk in her comments, which isn't often. But it gives me the general vibe of the room when the other movies never come up. I don't think I would do well among these people. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get further into the episode.
I mean, we already know you wouldn't do well. I barely do well. I can chameleon myself better.
Yeah.
You've got more of a directness to you. You're more likely to tell them to get fucked than I am.
I'm more likely to tell them to get fucked with data.
Yeah.
So, after the cold open, Candace starts off with a statement that leads into some Alex Jones garbage. I've named this clip Alex Jones. Sorry, guys.
Everything that is happening right now with Joe Biden is weird. I want you to know that. I want you to hear that from me. It is extremely strange. Any person pretending that it's not strange, calling you a conspiracy theorist, don't listen to those people. There's definitely something here. At the very least, we should know that we are being lied to, very much so, lied to, and we don't know who, in fact, is in control of our country. But in his defense, he hasn't been in control of our country since he assumed office, so I think it's just more people are becoming aware of that fact. So let's back this up, because there are a lot of people who legitimately believe that Joe Biden is dead. Not even like he's sick with COVID, missing, not in control, has amnesia, but actually dead. And I'm going to show you how and when those conspiracies began. Let's start with Alex Jones, who made some predictions not too long ago. Take a listen.
And I'm not wishing any harm against Biden, let's be clear. Because if he dies, that'll have a sympathy effect. Dies of a stroke, they poison him, maybe he dies naturally. I mean, he's a train wreck. Now, on the outside that Biden does not step down, they're going to assassinate him and blame it on a Trump supporter or poison him or something along those lines. But he'll be dead very soon because they don't have much time to tee up their next candidate. And just like I told you, I believe Biden would be gone by the 21st. We have the clips. And I still think that number is going to hold. And yesterday, he cancels his engagements. He cancels going out. Then he says, I'm sick. And then he says, I have COVID. And if I have an illness, I may drop out of the race. They're already segueing that to do it.
So just...
Now, apparently AJ did a gitch gallop there that even Candace had to respect because she feels the need to slow it down for her listeners by explaining it herself.
To slow that down for you, the theory was that Alex was pitching was that they had made a decision that they wanted Joe Biden gone, and they gave him the option to just sort of resign because of everyone demanding that he resigned. You know, the peer pressure campaign, it's time for him to step aside, it's time for him to step aside. George Clooney is writing letters. Everyone is saying he's my friend, but clearly something has happened. He's mentally deteriorating, and they thought that Joe Biden would bite. But of course, we then heard him say, nope, I am still in this race 100%. I don't care about the debate performance. So the idea here is that whoever is actually in control behind the scenes allowed Joe Biden to debate Trump because they knew that he was in full mental decline. They knew how the public would react to seeing him not even able to string together a sentence, and of course then sent out their Operation Mockingbirds to say, there's panic, essentially forcing Biden out of office, realizing that there was no path forward to him for him to beat Donald J. Trump. But again, Joe Biden said, nope, I'm in it to win it. His campaign said, nope, everything is going to be exactly the same. So Alex Jones was predicting, since the good way didn't happen, the nice way, so to speak, did not go down the way that they had planned, they were then just going to kill him. So he was predicting that Joe Biden was going to come down with an illness before he actually came down with an illness. So let me give you guys this timeline. The last time Joe Biden was seen, it was on July 17th. You'll recall, I'm going to show you this video. He came down the stairs of Air Force One, and he was struggling to get down these stairs. So if you're watching this live on YouTube, you can just see his movement. It's very strange. Obviously, this is a person who has an awkward gait, likely because of some illness, and we were hearing rumors then that he had a Parkinson's disease doctor that was visiting the White House. So that was the last time that he was seen before today. We were then told, because people were quite concerned about his movements or non-movements there, that he had COVID, which is why he had to cut his trip to Las Vegas short. And then suddenly he resigned on Sunday. Now that was an objectively...
And then we really get into the conspiracy.
Odd resignation. So you imagine these campaigns, like I said, where you have so many people working, these young kids that are not sleeping, everybody's drinking coffee, eating pizza, and they did not know. They found out on Twitter that Joe Biden, the person that they had been working for, had resigned. It's very odd. They were speaking out saying, we had no idea, we didn't hear this from the campaign. So that's a very strange thing. He did this on Twitter, on X. He just dropped the letter and said, I'm suspending my campaign. You will notice, and here really is where the conspiracy theories began to ramp up. There is no presidential seal on that letter, which leads many to believe that Joe Biden did not actually sign this letter. And of course, there's no way to verify that he did because we're not hearing him speak. Joe Biden.
Go ahead, because I can explain all of this. But go ahead.
I have seen copies of that fucking letter because, you know, when he resigned, it was fucking news.
Yeah.
I've seen copies of pictures of that letter that have the seal on there.
That was added post haste.
Okay.
And I can explain all of that.
Okay. Also, maybe it's just because, you know, where I work is near a nursing home, so I see a lot of old people, but, like, have none of these people seen, like, an old person try to walk?
Yeah.
Like, they as they get older progressively, and we'll all do this, their walking gets weirder and weirder. Some of them even need, think about it, canes and walkers. Or even a scooter sometimes.
Yeah.
Because all your ligaments and shit just start tightening up with the rest of you.
Yeah. I mean, you know, Biden's 81 years old.
Yeah, he's at the point of ligament tightening.
Yeah, I mean, tightening. Just the sheer amount of stress you go through as the president.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you look at Obama. When he got into office, upon leaving, that was 8 years.
Yeah.
That dude aged.
Yeah.
I mean, still looks good for his age because he's had time to be away from the job and be like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't need to deal with any of you people anymore, you know? Mm-hmm. They don't, like, it takes them a couple years to, like, get their life back together.
Yeah.
To get their head straight. After that job. That's a rough fucking job.
Honestly, I wouldn't blame any of them of just taking the out of office pay and going, I'm gonna go retire far away from all of you people.
It's like, let me just establish getting this pay for the rest of my life. 2 years in, I'm good? We all good? Mm-hmm. Hey, Vice, you got this? You seem like a good dude. Okay, cool.
That's like a manager going up to the assistant and going, "Hey, how would you like a promotion?" Yeah. "Oh, yeah, I know you really need it because your wife and kids. Yeah, I'm quitting. Here you go."
Here's the keys. Oh, God. Yeah, so, to explain this, Biden often doesn't use the official presidential seal for campaign stuff, and neither does Harris. This may or may not be due to the Hatch Act, which, briefly, is an act that restricts federal employees from using their official positions for partisan political activity. The president and the vice president are actually exempted from this, but Biden has been careful of these kind of things in the entire time he's been in office.
Yeah.
Including back when he was the vice president.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you don't want to stamp the wrong thing and then get the flack for it.
Yeah, you know, like, there's no reason to do that. And, of course, Candace doesn't mention this, which tells me she either doesn't know or it's a lie of omission.
Yeah.
Which we know she is down for.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But wait for that. Wait for that.
Oh.
But regardless, it was kind of a dick move to not inform the campaign staff, first in some way. But considering how leaky campaigns are to the press, it would have been news instantly anyway.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And then we get...
On Monday, July 22nd, we had the physician, the White House physician, issue a letter stating that, you know, he was on the up and up, that he had had his 10th shot of Paxlovid. The Paxlovid, I guess that's the treatment for COVID, which seems completely insane that you would get 10 injections of that, but that he was doing well. Okay, so that was just...
So yeah, all of that would be crazy, considering that his doctor didn't say that because Paxlovid is not injected. It's actually 2 medications taken in tandem as pills twice a day for 5 days. So getting to your 10th one is pretty good because you didn't die in the other 4 fucking days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, then we get this.
July 22nd. He is doing well. He said President Biden completed his 10th dose of Paxlovid this morning. His symptoms have almost resolved completely. His pulse, blood pressure, respiratory rate, and temperature remain absolutely normal. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, great. So obviously we should be able to see Biden. At the very least, he should appear in front of the campaign, which he just suspended on Twitter, and say to everyone, hey, I'm really sorry that I did it this way. I'm not sure why the entire team would allow me to do it this way. Everyone around me, you would think someone would say, hey, that's actually, it's not proper. You should go meet with them and thank them for their time. So because people started asking this question, suddenly on that same day on July 22nd, he called into campaign headquarters so that he could address people via telephone. Again, this is via telephone, not in person. Obviously, we live in the age where someone could have easily had him on Skype, could have put him on FaceTime so he could say hello if you're concerned about COVID spreading. But nope, it was just a phone call. I'm going to let you listen to a little bit of that phone call, and I will tell you what is odd about it. Take a listen.
Now, Candace actually does play part of the Biden call, but she tries to recover from it a wee bit. Yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I'm not saying she's behind the times on her technological FaceTiming, but who the fuck uses Skype anymore?
Oh, a lot of these ding-dongs still use it.
But Zoom's just, I mean,
Yeah,
it's so much better,
here's
though.
the thing, though. Zoom is owned by a Chinese company.
All right, cool. I'll eat some chow mein. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, they do.
They do
these are the
realize
same
that,
people that pushed for TikTok to be banned from the U.S. because it was owned by a Chinese firm named ByteDance.
don't they also know that the Twitter that they use so much, fuck you Elon, that they use so much is like 50. Is it 50% owned by the
Here's the thing. They don't know how Elon funded Twitter because they didn't bother to look into it. I can tell you that there is multinational money that was given to Elon.
Yeah.
A lot of it came from Saudi Arabia.
That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't know that because they don't bother to look into it, even though it's all public knowledge.
Yep.
It's all right there. You know it because I've told you.
actually.
And I'm sure that other people have mentioned it.
Yeah. The guy that you were giving a bit of flack for having the Tesla. Yeah,
Yeah.
He had told me about it before you did.
Yeah.
Funny enough, after he bought his Tesla, and he's regretting it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He was sitting back and he was like, I should have just gotten a tear-shaped leaf, because that's what he actually wanted, was a tear-shaped leaf.
I mean, he could still trade that shit brick in.
Yeah, apparently he's tried that and he's gotten in trouble from the Tesla dealership over it.
Oh.
Because
Well,
they're
if he signed a deal with those devils,
yeah.
then yeah, I don't even want to get into their fucking paperwork.
No.
Ugh. Okay, so here we go. I've named this clip "Biden Call Fakeroo."
Keep me out of people's hair for the next 3 or 4 days. But I'm going to be on the road, and I'm not going anywhere. It's kept me away a little bit, but I want people to remember that what we have done has been incredible, and we get so much more we're going to get done. And so I want to say hello to Kamala if she can hear me. I know she's going to be speaking shortly. And I want to say to the team, embrace her. She's the best. I want to call everybody in this effort. I know yesterday's news was surprising, and it was hard for you to hear, but it was the right thing to do. I know it's hard because you poured your heart and soul into me to help us win this thing. Help me get this nomination.
So he's confirming that they were all surprised by this news, that he decided to just do this in a tweet without his presidential seal. But also, we know that we live in the age where you can create these AI recordings. On my last show, I showed you guys how I could create a recording and I could be any person that I wanted, because there is now the AI technology where all you have to do is record a soundbite of them, and then you could just force the AI to say whatever you want that person to say in an AI voice. And it's very scary. There's a lot of scam calls going on because people are pretending to be relatives and using AI technology to get people to acquiesce to giving their credit card details because they think that their loved one is in trouble. So this is just not convincing. And as if...
Yeah, so we know how well AI stuff can work when used in a specific way, as every song we've played on this show is made with an AI program called Donna. Also, people have been scammed in the last couple of years with AI-generated calls of their supposed family members being kidnapped, and the supposed kidnappers using their voices to extort money from their families. So while this isn't out-of-line thinking for that kind of stuff, it is absurd to apply it to this. But Candace goes on to play more of the call in the meeting between Biden's staff and Harris.
If it weren't convincing enough, Kamala Harris then gets on stage and has a gaffe, because that's what it's always called whenever they do it. It's a gaffe. And as she's speaking with Joe Biden, as I'm about to show you, rather than saying that he's on a call, she says, or almost says, that he is on a recording. So take a listen.
It is so good to hear our president's voice. Joe, I know you're still on the call, and we've been talking every day. You guys heard it from Doug's voice. We love Joe and Jill. We really do. They truly are like family to us. And we do, everybody here.
It's mutual.
I knew you were still there. You're not going anywhere, Joe.
I'm watching you, kid. I'm watching you, kid. I love you.
I love you, Joe.
So you see, she says you're still on the call. So people took that and said that's a strange slip there to call it on the call. And again, it just doesn't make people feel as though that's actually Joe Biden on the phone due to the tech that is available to create someone who is speaking just like him. Then it gets even stranger. Charlie Kirk, who is a friend of mine, I work with Turning Point USA all the time.
Yeah, so I will go on the record and say that I believe that was President Biden. And yes, Harris had a gaffe. She had just been handed a huge responsibility. Regardless of whether or not she knew about it ahead of time, nothing is really real until it happens. And then, of course, life itself can move very quickly. But back to that clip, Charlie Clerk, God, I wish. I'm offended that his last name is Kirk. I'm fucking offended. I'm not even much of a Trek nerd, and I'm fucking offended at that.
Do you think he was born in Iowa?
No. God, I hope not. I've never looked
I
it up.
really hope he's not, and I really hope he doesn't get into the military and earns the rank of captain.
No, he's too old.
Oh, good.
He's too old. I don't know if he's ever served, but he's too old to do that now, I think. Ugh. Anyway, back to the clip. Charlie Kirk is another of the many alt-right assholes in Candace's orbit. For those who don't know, he started Turning Point USA with money from billionaire donors and has used it as a propaganda factory to try to recruit smooth brains from colleges mostly. TPUSA, as they are also known, is the main force behind Candace's ongoing Blexit movement. Anyway, Candace reads some tweets from his Twitter regarding the state of Biden's health last week, and it's just a rumor mill involving former cops that actually emailed him. Because it was just surmised bullshit, we're skipping it. Candace goes on to answer the question at the top of the episode, which was, is Joe Biden dead? No, but that won't stop her.
To just dropping this letter. And again, it did not bear the presidential seal, so kind of feels like there's something going on there. Now, is he in fact dead? Well, he recently, very recently, a couple of hours ago, has been seen coming out of his car, pulled off his mask, and it looks like he is boarding Air Force One, but he doesn't say anything in this clip that I'm about to show you as reporters are attempting to speak to him. Take a look at this. So I'll just talk over this for those of you that are listening on the podcast. But yeah, he just gets out of his vehicle. He's wearing sunglasses, and the reporters are asking him a question, but he doesn't actually respond to the question. He instead just buttons up his jacket, gives a thumbs up, and walks very slowly to Air Force One. So people are saying, is this actually Joe Biden? Now, I obviously can't answer that question, but I will say this. It's not a conspiracy theory to believe that there are presidential decoys. There have been presidential decoys since the beginning of time.
Yeah, so Biden's not dead, but she surmises it's a decoy, and apparently America has existed since the beginning of time, which is news to me.
I mean, yeah, why did we even go through a Revolutionary War? We could have just skipped that, apparently.
Yeah, we could have just breezed past it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess we kind of did. The French showed up at the end there, but...
Yeah. Candace uses this type of phrasing a lot this week, and I'm not sure if she believes it. Anyway, we get treated to a classic tactic.
And when I tell you that if you looked at a president or a leader and then looked at his decoy, you would not be able to tell the difference. Actually, Business Insider did an article a couple of years ago showing Fidel Castro's decoy or stunt double, so to speak, I guess just presidential double, as well as Saddam Hussein's, which Saddam Hussein's, I am telling you, there was just entirely no way that you would ever know that that was a different person. It also speaks about in that same article how Stalin had a decoy, so it is very commonplace. I would actually say it's the industry standard for obvious reasons, because if you're concerned about the president's safety, you need to make sure that you have someone who looks just like him. And what they make those decoys do, sometimes they do go under and they have plastic surgery, as that article in Business Insider stipulates. They definitively make them go through classes, they coach them on how to move, and essentially just how to fake people into believing that that's actually them. So who knows? Could this be a decoy? Could this not be a decoy? The more important thing is that he is slated to speak and to address the American people from the White House. And I think that will give us the comfort that I think people deserve in knowing that he's actually alive, that he is making these decisions of sound mind. Now, of course, no matter what, when he speaks, we know he's not really of sound mind, but the main concern is that something more serious happened, and I think that the only way to get those concerns resolved or set aside is to make sure that he appears and he speaks in front of the American people. Lastly,
You have thoughts?
Why... Okay.
Uh-huh.
Now, I don't remember what Saddam Hussein's political leaning was.
I mean, kind of just a dictator, honestly.
Okay.
I mean,
Well,
you could say good things and bad things about the guy. Mostly a lot of bad, but some good.
Okay, well...
He made literacy a thing in Iraq. He made literacy a thing at gunpoint in Iraq. But he made literacy a thing. They weren't a very literate people when he came to power. They were way more literate during his tenure.
Okay.
I'm going to give him that one.
fair enough. I mean, Hitler made the highway.
Yeah, he made a highway.
A highway.
Yeah. Anyway.
But what I was getting at there was she mentioned Fidel Castro, then Saddam Hussein,
And Stalin.
All three of them dictators that everybody wanted to kill. So of course they'd have a body double. I was just kind of piqued my.
Apparently, too, being a Saddam body double, like there were several, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
Apparently, being a Saddam body double, like you didn't get to really have contact with your family. It was kind of a gilded cage situation, but
Yeah.
like these dudes got to live in the palaces.
All right.
You know, like they had to effectively be Saddam.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I mean, I have to imagine that the people around them knew that they were a decoy.
Mm-hmm.
But that was like trusted inner circle, guard.
Secret.
Yeah. I mean, so
But-
yeah.
It just she couldn't list anybody but
Outright brutal dictators?
Yeah.
No.
And she's trying to. I mean, no offense to Biden, but he is a bit of a doddering old man.
Yeah.
She lists off these horrendous dictators.
Yeah.
And then is trying to compare it to
Yeah.
doddering old man.
But, the fact is, we all know it at this point, Biden coming out to say anything to anyone after this kind of rhetoric isn't going to be enough for these people, mostly because it never has been. Again, I don't understand why they aren't bringing up the movie Dave.
Yeah.
Now, the next part is going to be familiar to people familiar with particular parts of the QAnon conspiracies. I'll try to sum up what I mean. When Jeffrey Epstein died, several people online that considered themselves experts looked at his corpse photos versus his alive photos and said that the corpse wasn't Epstein but was instead a body double.
Huh.
Their reasoning was that the earlobes of living Epstein did not match those of corpse Epstein. Notably, I don't think many of those people were doctors.
Ooh.
But hey, why not apply this to the current living president of the U.S.?
I will say this because I saw the earlobe conspiracy theory where people were saying, well, when he was working under Joe Biden, when Joe Biden was the vice president under Obama, he had earlobes that were detached, and now his earlobes are, not detached from his head, and that's 100% true. But my obvious response to that is that all of these people get facelifts, and once you get a facelift, as something with the procedure, they work on your ears to pull things up. So I think that really is just the same Joe Biden that was VP is the same Joe Biden that is president now. It's just simply trying to stay young and likely getting half a facelift or an entire facelift. All right, guys, before we get into...
Yeah, so even Candace Owens pushed back on that bullshit.
Yeah.
That's how ludicrous it is. I rarely give her points, but she gets them here. After doing an ad, Candace goes on to discuss the former head of the Secret Service, Kim Cheadle.
All right, getting into some stories. Kim Cheadle. Well, first and foremost, I'll tell you, she resigned today. That's the big news. She resigned. And I just want to know what job this is, that she had the opportunity to resign as opposed to having been fired. That's just got to be like female privilege or something. It just makes entirely no sense, given the remarkable security failure, if you're taking that angle, that it was a security failure and not something that was done on purpose because they wanted Trump dead. Either scenario, this woman should have been fired. And instead, they accepted her resignation. And as I said, the press is essentially saying, how dare we speak to her and comment on the fact that no women should be employed in an executive protection position, especially guarding someone that's much bigger than them. And you can just honestly step aside. If that's your viewpoint, you are unbearable. You truly are an insufferable human being, that you would watch him almost get assassinated live on television. And what you take away is, we're just not being nice enough to the ladies that are in suits guarding men. Anyways, she testified yesterday, and I am starting to feel very annoyed by these congressional testimonies because it just feels like they're always inadequate. We know they're essentially just going to plead the fifth, say nothing, answer nothing, and yet we're supposed to view this by the end of it as like, okay, we've asked all the questions we're supposed to ask, and now we can button this up and move on. And by the way, it does feel that they're already trying to get us to move on, and I am not over this. I am never going to be over the fact that we have no answers as to who attempted to assassinate President Trump. It's like the media isn't even interested in Matthew Crooks, not interested in his family, in his father, and his mother, in everything that we could possibly garner in terms of the information pertaining to this family. It's very obvious that this is starting to be memory holes. And if you want to see how extensively Kimberly Cheadle just essentially dodged questions yesterday, I'm going to show you just a few moments in case you didn't have time to watch it. Because it's been, just to be clear, which testified yesterday, it had been 9 days since the Trump assassination attempt. 9 days where she had the ability to speak to the Secret Service. But she says that it's not enough time. She still can't answer basic questions like whether or not they had Secret Service members on that roof. Take a listen to her being questioned by James Comer.
Now, I didn't want to play any of the Cheadle testimony because it's nearly pointless as far as getting answers is concerned. But I think it might be useful anyway to understand Candace's points here. I should note that she doesn't play the whole thing and she doesn't link to it in her show notes. But anyway, here's the first segment.
Start with the building that the shooter used to shoot President Trump from. At any point Saturday, did the Secret Service have an agent on top of that roof?
Sir, I'm sure as you can imagine that we are just 9 days out from this incident, and there's still an ongoing investigation. And so I want to make sure that any information that we are providing to you is factual.
You can't, okay. Why did the Secret Service not? Can you answer why the Secret Service didn't place a single agent on the roof?
We are still looking into the advanced process and the decisions that were made.
Well, okay. Wasn't that building within the perimeter that should be secured? Do we agree with that?
The building was outside of the perimeter on the day of the visit. But again, that is one of the things that during the investigation we want to take a look at and determine whether or not other decisions should have been made.
9 days, ladies and gentlemen, and Kim Cheadle cannot say whether or not they had Secret Service on that particular roof. I mean, what is she doing? Is she sending snail mail? Because I do think that even if she had sent a letter to every single Secret Service agent at their home and said, hey, were you on the roof that day? She would have by now received a letter back. That's just my opinion. A text message coming to a group chat with all the Secret Service agents. Hey, were one of you guys on the roof that day? No. Okay, yeah, no one was on the roof. But she says there's not enough time because, they're still investigating. And my personal perspective is that they're not investigating. They're just trying to see what their official story is going to be by first asking a bunch of questions of witnesses to what happened to make sure that they don't unintentionally tell a lie that can be debunked. But let's go on because it gets even better. It's very clear who was in control of everything that happened that day, and it sure doesn't look like it's the Secret Service. It is none other than the FBI. Take a listen to what she says when she is questioned by Representative Lisa McClain.
So yeah, following up is Republican Lisa McClain from Michigan, who in my view really badgers Kim Cheadle. McClain has credited the winning of her congressional seat to Trump endorsing her. So maybe this whole thing hit a little close for her, or maybe she wanted an opportunity to grandstand. Either way, it's not fun to listen to, but here we are.
But you want to take accountability, right? The buck stops with you, right?
I am taking accountability.
Super, then let's start with trying to answer some questions. You keep referring to the FBI. When asked how many shell casings were on the roof, you referred to the FBI. When asked if there were explosives in the car, you referred to the FBI. When asked if Crooks was acting alone, you referred to the FBI. See a common theme here? I can go on and on. My question is, who at the FBI should I speak with? Wait for it.
The FBI is responsible for the criminal.
Is there a name?
I'm not certain.
All right, here we go. I'm not certain. I don't know. Let me ask a different question. Have you been in communication with the FBI?
Yes, I have.
With whom?
I speak with the director and the deputy director.
Okay. And what have they shared with you about this investigation? So I'll give you an opportunity to answer again. Did they share with you how many shell casings were on the roof?
have shared with me the
Did they share with you how many shell casing were on the roof?
Yes.
Okay, how many were there?
I would refer to the FBI for their
How
investigation
many were there?
and their information that they need to share in their investigation.
So they've shared the information with you. You just don't want to share the information with us, correct?
We have concurrent investigations that are going on.
So they have shared this information with you. You know the answer to the question. You just refuse to answer the question from the member of Congress who has subpoenaed you to be here. Is there a different answer to that question?
I was always willing to come here and testify before this oversight hearing.
Beautiful. Then let's do that. Let's for once have your actions match your words. So you've been in communication with the FBI. You know the answers, and you refuse to tell us the answers. So I will ask you again. You know how many shell casings were on that roof. What is the answer to that question?
I think it's pertinent.
What is the answer to that question?
I think it's pertinent to talk to you about the information that the Secret Service has and that the Secret Service knows related
I'm
to the
asking
events
you
on
an
that day.
answer to the question. If you're supposed to be in charge, if the buck stops with you, how come you can't share the answers? What are you covering up? What are you hiding, my friend?
I'm not covering anything up.
Then why can't you answer a simple question?
So, yeah. My read on this, after listening to it several times, is that Cheadle is only going to say what she can, and she is being badgered to give up information she isn't supposed to share. I don't understand at this point why it is important that she tell them how many shell casings were found at the scene, and the way they were going after her about it seems abnormal to me. I don't know if they were told what she could and couldn't talk about, but the manner of that line of grandstand questioning, it seems to me that she might be trying to piss off Cheadle to get her to seem unhinged. Personally, I think it might be better to be defensive than to go on the attack in this case.
I absolutely love Lisa McLean because she is all of us. We're just recognizing what is this sham, what's actually going on. There's a tiny little piece of me that actually feels bad for Kim Cheadle. I'll tell you why. Because this woman knows too much, right? The FBI has told her to keep her mouth shut, probably if she wants to live. I mean, she's sitting back there and she's like, these are the guys that killed MLK. These are the guys that were threatening MLK right before he died. JFK got shot in broad daylight, and they just tried to shoot Donald Trump in broad daylight. Maybe I should sit this one out. And that's what we realized. We realized in this moment that these FBI members at the top that are saying that Christopher Wray is in control of this country, right? It is ridiculous that we do not have more answers, that she doesn't feel comfortable answering something as simple as how many shell casings were found on the rooftop. That is how afraid, I think she is afraid, right? I don't think she's smart enough to be colluding with them, but that is how fearful she is when it comes to stepping on the toes of the FBI. This is when we talk about the deep state, this is what we're referring to. It means Congress can't get answers, we can't get answers at the American people, even the person that was almost assassinated cannot get answers because there is a borough that has been corrupt, agencies that have been corrupt since their genesis. Yes, since the very beginning of the establishment of the FBI and the CIA, they have been corrupt. There's not been a single minute of the day, not a single hour of the day where those agencies have not been corrupt. And so, yeah, I wouldn't want to be Kim Cheadle right now. I wouldn't want to be Kim Cheadle at all. That's not it, of course, because then there's even things that she couldn't provide, like a timeline, a basic timeline of what happened on that day. Here is Marjorie Taylor Greene questioning Miss Kim Cheadle.
You have thoughts?
Well, when they were asking her, did the FBI tell you, yada yada, and she said yes, and they went, okay, so then, and she said, I'd refer to the FBI.
Yeah.
That means stop asking me the fucking question and actually ask the people that you want the fucking question from.
Yeah.
On top of federal investigations, if you're in the midst of a police investigation, and they tell you, hey, please don't give any evidence off to the press or whatever, you don't do it because you could get in trouble. When it comes down to a federal investigation, you really keep your mouth shut until everything's out.
Yeah. until they clear that information.
Yeah, not because they'll kill you, but because they'll put you behind bars for so fucking long.
Yeah. You know, and that's something else here, too, is that Candace is insisting that this is all being memory hold. I guarantee you it's not. Mm-hmm. Because my newsfeed is tailored to me listening and dealing with this shit. I get no end of articles from CNN, Fox, etc. about the latest updates on it. Mm-hmm. It is not being memory hold in any sense. Yeah.
It's called, there's a federal investigation going on, and those take time to digest what they need to before they release what they need to.
My favorite thing that has come out is that one of the things that the FBI director did say to the press, in some form, it's not been official yet, but they're thinking now that it wasn't a bullet that grazed Trump, it was teleprompter glass.
Teleprompter glass?
Yeah. Because the guy was an incredibly bad shot.
Yeah.
Even if he had, like, help on his gun, which you can do with an AR-15, he was an incredibly bad shot.
Yeah.
Like, that's just canon for his life story, was that he was incredibly terrible with a rifle. You know, and I mentioned it on Mastodon earlier this week. I was talking with some other people about it openly, you know, and it had come up that, you know, I was like, you know, I'm a fan of the theory that he wanted to make a name for himself.
Yeah.
And I don't think he thought he was going to die.
No.
I think he maybe he thought it was a risk. Mm-hmm. But he had like a working bomb rigged up to his car. And another one rigged up to like another building or his house or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, I think he was going to blow those, you know, before getting like taken into custody.
Yeah.
I think it's my working theory right now, based on what's been released, that he knew he didn't have a chance maybe at killing Trump. Maybe that was going to be something that he could do. Mm-hmm. But him just doing that was going to get his name in the press.
Yeah.
I think he just wanted to be famous. Mm-hmm. You know, and because his life path, you know, as smart as he was or whatever, he had actually gotten drone footage of the area before he picked a spot.
Well.
Yeah. You know, but yeah, it's still like he was smart.
Yeah.
But I don't think that he thought he was going to die.
Yeah. He was smart but not wise.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, anyway, I should probably mention, for those that don't know, Project 2025 from the Heritage Foundation, which Candace will claim to know nothing about later in the week, wants to vastly curtail and monitor the FBI, CIA, and other alphabet agencies. Candace, continuing to hammer home the shit takes about those agencies and choosing to not find any good in the work they do, is rather telling, but it's common on her side of politics. Next up is Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is usually the dimmest bulb in the pack.
Yeah?
Yeah. Having her turn at Kim Cheadle.
Why was Crooks able to fly a drone over the entire area the day of the rally and the day of his assassination attempt?
To my knowledge, he did not fly the drone over the entire area.
How did he fly a drone over the area, period? Any part of the area?
Again, I would have to go back and check the timeline of when that took place and when the event...
Why didn't you bring the timeline with you today to answer our questions?
I don't have all of the answers on the timelines based on the criminal investigation.
Were you not prepared today to answer our questions?
I am prepared to answer the questions based on the information and wanted to be able to provide.
Do you have a timeline do you have a timeline at all from any of the day?
I have a timeline that does not have specifics.
That's shocking. That is absolutely unacceptable. That means you're a failure at your job.
And then we get this from Candace. It isn't long, but it's a callback to our first episode.
Oh?
I don't even know what that means. I have a timeline with no specifics. Like, I want to just think through that for a second. Here's the timeline. Here's 9 a.m., 10 a.m., so there's just nothing on it. So she just basically just has just like a blank schedule that just says the time, and there are no specifics written into it. Again, she's clearly not being forthcoming and honest, which makes her, actually speaking, dishonest, right? I believe in lies by omission, and therefore that makes Kim Cheadle a liar.
Yeah.
I heard that, and then it took me a second to process.
Yep. Candace thinks that lies by omission are still lies. So, by her definition,
She is a liar.
She's a liar. That's right. Candace
Yeah.
considers omitting the truth to be a lie. It was worth the journey. To me, anyway. I'd like to point out that this is a tactic we first explored in episode 1 of this show, done by Larry Elder, in his foreword of Candace's book, Blackout. Candace has engaged in it herself, as demonstrated by us many times in past episodes. This is the first time I've heard her give voice to her own sin. Candace goes on with,
Probably scared. I'll give her that. She's probably terrified. Who would not be terrified? She's coming up close with people that have done very dirty and awful things all throughout American history. But it's just shocking to hear her say these things where she's unable to, a person that is supposed to be heading up the Secret Service, unable to answer basic questions. And this is the reason, if you are a spineless, feckless individual, that you have no business in government. This is my personal perspective, that if you are so much of a coward that you could witness that, be a part of that, and not be so enraged that you would be forthcoming with every piece of information, we need you to step aside. And that's exactly, by the way, with what Rep. Pat Fallon tells her that she should probably do. Step aside. Take a listen.
I have never had any long gun training in my life. I own an AR-15, and last time I shot it one time my whole life. It was 6 years ago. That is until Saturday, where we recreated the events in Savoy, Texas. We recreated what happened to Butler. I was lying prone on a sloped roof at 130 yards at 6:30 at night. And I knew that he had a scope. I didn't know what kind, red dot or magnified. So I shot 8 rounds from both. You know what the result was? 15 out of 16 kill shots. And the one I missed would have hit the president's ear. That's a 94% success rate. And that shooter was a better shot than me. It is a miracle President Trump wasn't killed. Corey Compatore's life is over because that damn shooter made it on the roof. And it wasn't the roof that was dangerous. It was a nut job on top of the roof. You know what else is dangerous? I believe your horrifying ineptitude and your lack of skilled leadership is a disgrace. Your obfuscating today is shameful. And you should be fired immediately and go back to Garden Doritos.
Now, before we continue, I have some issues with what he said.
Yeah.
I had never heard of this guy, Pat Fallon, before. Apparently, he's a big deal in Texas. Anyway, he was in the ROTC in college, and then he was an officer in the Air Force, where he served for 4 years and retired as a captain. I find it hard to believe that with that military record, he never had long gun training, as he calls it, and nailed 15 of 16 shots with 2 different scopes at 160 yards. I am aware that the Air Force is not known for the rifle training that the Marines go through, but that much time in ROTC plus Air Force Basic, I find it hard to believe that shit.
Considering most, and correct me if I'm wrong, you'll
Yeah.
have the email for this,
Yeah.
but at most military training of any sort,
Yeah.
you get basic handgun and long gun training.
You do.
Because they want to make sure that in any situation that you end up in, you are at least able to shoot a gun comprehensively.
Yeah. Competently.
Competently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As for the bit at the end about her going back to guarding chips, that's again something I think was designed to make her lose her cool. Kim Cheadle had a 30-year career in the Secret Service, with a 3-year break between 2019 to 2022, when she went to work for Pepsi as the Senior Director of Global Security. Keep all of that in mind as we go through the next section.
God.
And that is what she did, dear friend. She is going back to guarding Doritos, which was her previous job. I think she worked for a chip company, and she never should have had this position. But that is the whole point, by the way. They love DEI because it allows them to put people that are incompetent and fearful into positions of power, so that when the real people that are in power do things and commit acts, they can essentially bully them. And that's what's happening right now. You're looking at a woman who is effectively useless. She's terrified. She has no idea what to say. She was hired for all of the wrong reasons so that they could simply do, as we showed you in a prior episode, a commercial and say, look, there's a woman in charge. You're supposed to feel good about that. I don't feel good about any of this. In fact, there's a piece of me that believes that the entire push of DEI was exactly that, putting people that are tremendously incompetent and ill-fitted for the positions into these places, into these corporations, into these government positions, so that they can effectively just be controlled. They're useless, and yet they feel so good about these positions. So yes, she has given her resignation. I'm sure she's happy, and she's also probably still terrified. But I do not want us to forget that 10 days ago, President Donald Trump was supposed to be assassinated. Donald Trump is supposed to be dead today. That was the plan for Trump. And I am sorry, I am not buying this Matthew Crooks lone shooter story. Doesn't feel right to me. All right, guys, before we move on and we talk about this shooting in Illinois, I do want to tell you guys about a company that is just so amazing, because they're making pajamas with Bible verses, and I have 3 kids, and they are just so sweet. It's called Holy Pals, and they basically, again, make these pajamas that you can quite literally wrap your children in the Word of God. I love this, and I want to make sure that you guys get an exclusive discount code, because I want to raise my kids to know God. I am raising my kids to know God and to love God, and that is what Holy Pals Bible PJs is all about, engaging with the Bible in a fun, adorable, and cozy way. Each pajama has the passage reference stitched on the sleeve. They just released their summer collection with the most adorable Fruit of the Spirit design, as well as Armor of God and Ruth and Naomi. Parents are raving about how amazing the quality is and how much their kids love them. So you guys be sure to check out Holy Pals pajamas. They are absolutely amazing.
Okay, so I went to the Holy Pals website, and it seems legit. The prices don't seem too insane up against what I've seen at Target and other retailers. I did not put in Candace's discount code though, so I'm not sure how much that would have gotten off, but they have a large variety. But on the FAQ page, where it asks where the products are made and sourced, they do say the products are made in India.
Oh.
I just hope it isn't a sweatshop operation and the workers are treated well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Here's what's interesting, okay?
Yeah.
So they've apparently been in business for at least a couple years, and they have their summer collection out right now. Here's what's fucked up, okay? So they've got these, they call it Christmas family, like, photo set or something like that.
Yeah.
Where, you can, like, presumably order a set for the entire family.
Yeah.
Here's what's fucked up, okay? Kids, fully covered. Boys, girls, whatever, fully covered. Mom, fully covered. Dad gets sweatpants. There's no tops for the fathers. They show the picture of the family in question, and it's like, they've got a couple of them, and it's like, it's a dad with like a white t-shirt, and the sweatpants that match the family.
So he gets...
He doesn't get a top.
So he's got to freeze his upper half off. Yeah. That's just mean.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I clicked around. I was like, I gotta be seeing this wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's no shirts available for the fathers that match, like, the pants that match, like, the kids and the wife.
That's fucked.
Yeah, it's a little fucky. Yeah. They do have a huge variety, too.
The only time that I'd ever find myself on a website like that is if I'm friends with a metalhead and they're having a kid and they like Metallica.
No, that's when you get them the Holy Pals shit. But don't use Holy Pals because it gives her money.
Only if I use her code.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had a clearance section.
See?
So, yeah, I'm just saying.
That's what I'm saying. If one of my metalhead friends...
Not only do I not support you having crotch fruit, but here, I bought this at discount. Like, channel my grandmother.
Also,
yeah.
God.
I wish I had like at least the Jewish grandmother experience.
Yeah.
Because mine was very noticeably Jewish, but they were all Protestants. Like I grew up in this fucking messianic family, and my grandmother though, she towards the end of her life, she gave 0 fucks.
Yeah.
She was awesome.
Like every Jewish grandmother.
Yeah, she gave 0 fucks, and she was awesome. And just to let her like go off.
Yeah.
Was great. Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
The part that really makes my eye twitch, I've been having an eye twitch all week, God, is they're talking about, I got 15 to 16 kill shots, right?
Yeah.
Without any prior training, which we know is bullshit, because he was in the military in some fashion.
Yeah. Well, he was in the Air Force.
Well,
and in the ROTC in college.
See, here's the thing. One of my managers is an active. Well, he's in reservation.
Yeah, reserves.
And, he's in the reserves, and he does ROTC every weekend.
Yeah.
That motherfucker knows how to shoot.
Yeah.
He's brought to work before because somebody asked him to. Hey, are you allowed to bring home your targeting range things? And he's like, I guess I could ask.
Yeah.
So he brought one home. He's a real good shot because he's been in reserves for like 5 fucking years now.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, no, most of us are good shots at this point. Yeah. And so, that being said, that aside, they want to claim that it's some Secret Service or FBI trained individual. And they're saying that, they could get 15 out of 16 kill shots.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, that motherfucker fired off several rounds.
Yeah.
Even if some of those were like, oh shit, I missed rounds.
Yeah.
He fired off enough rounds that, according to their math, he should have hit, if he was a trained individual, he should have hit with his first shot.
Yeah. Should have hit with his first shot, or at the very least, any of the 7 that followed it.
Yeah.
We know there were 8 shots fired at this point. Mm-hmm. They've released that. We know there were 8 shots fired.
Yeah.
So.
It's just, it's so infuriating because everybody I've heard is like, he was a trained individual from yada yada. And I'm just like, no, he fucking wasn't.
No.
If he had any training, he would have made the shot.
He would have made the shot and not hit innocent bystanders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe a Secret Service agent, which would have been unfortunate, but still.
There would have been a higher count.
Yeah.
Not just one unfortunate bystander and 2 others who I think are still in critical.
Yeah.
But Candace follows all of this with...
All right, guys, moving on. Illinois. Obviously, we expect right before election time, things get crazy every single time, and typically there seems to be a story that is targeted to Black America because they always want Black America enraged and angry, and therefore voting and acting without a cool mind, like not without a level head, right? You're supposed to just be angry, and whichever party gets behind you and your anger is supposed to be the party that you support. That's exactly why George Floyd, that was perpetuated around the world with very little facts and a lot of emotion. Well, people are wondering if it's supposed to be the second George Floyd story, given the fact that the President of the United States has already tweeted about it. So I'm going to at first tell you what took place. There was a
Now, I'll go ahead and spare everyone the meandering case Candace is about to make. But first, she really should shut the fuck up about George Floyd. Unless she goes to George Floyd Square here in Minneapolis and speaks with the people there, she has no right to discuss him and the events that happened. Anyway, in this case, she is talking about the late killing of a black woman named Sonia Massey. Massey called the police to her place because she thought she heard a prowler outside, and from the provided video, which Candace does play the audio of, Sonia seems mentally unwell when she's talking with the police that arrived to her place. One of the officers shoots her in the head, way over the line of what was called for in the situation. Candace follows with a classic Gish gallop after saying it was a horrible mistake, and we get this.
Did not seem like an appropriate response to me whatsoever. Now, parking that aside, of course, as I have said since the beginning of time, there are mistakes that police officers are human beings. There are mistakes that happen, and the idea that now you're going to use this situation and all the usual suspects are already involved, we know that Attorney Crump is already involved, to then try to make Black Americans believe that this happened simply because she was Black is pointedly ridiculous. So I am saying to Black Americans today, do not take this bait. Yes, what happened in this situation, I think he's going to have a very hard time, this officer, saying that he absolutely felt so threatened by boiling water that the only solution was for him to mindfully say, I'm going to shoot you in the face, and that's what he did. I think that's going to be a very steep hill to climb. But the reaction from Black America cannot be exactly what they want. There is a reason that whoever is in control of Joe Biden's account instantly tweeted about this, okay? It's because they think we're stupid, they think we're emotional, they think that we always respond illogically and emotionally, and that it's an easy way for them to shore up votes by saying, oh, look, forget that we've destroyed everything around you and that we got you to burn down your neighborhoods, burn down your neighborhoods in 2020, and then obviously stole a bunch of money because none of that money actually went to making your neighborhoods better, and so now those communities are desolate. Forget all of that, because look another video, and this means racism is back, and vote for us because we're going to show you how emotional we are. That's exactly what Joe Biden did. He tweeted this on the heels. He wrote, Sonia Massey, a beloved mother, friend, daughter, and young Black woman, should be alive today. Sonia's death at the hands of a police officer reminds us that all too often Black Americans face fears for their safety in ways many of the rest of us do not. Sonia's family deserves justice. I am heartbroken for her children and family as they face this unthinkable and senseless loss. Jill and I mourn with the rest of the country, and our prayers are with Sonia's families, loved ones, and community during this devastating time. Okay, again, going to say here, this happened in Springfield, Illinois, that the only reason whoever is in control of his account is putting that out there is because too many Black Americans are turning toward Trump. They think too many Black Americans are catching on to the Democrat scam, and so they scan every one of these situations and they leave out the hard facts. The hard facts are that if you examine this just based on a percentage rate, white Americans unarmed are more likely to be shot and killed by police officers in mistakes, shot and killed by police officers in these correspondences than Black Americans. That is a fact. It is an inescapable fact. There's no way to examine the statistics and not come out with that understanding, okay? And they don't want you to know that.
No. Black Americans are not turning into Republicans en masse, and also, no one burned down cities in 2020. And I looked into her supposed fact that white persons are killed more often by police. Also absolutely untrue. There is no stat breakdown for armed or unarmed, but Black Americans are killed more often by police, and police killings were the worst last year, at nearly 1,800 total in America. The majority of the victims were Black, and this goes back this way for every year I checked, going back 20 years. From the start of this show, this has been a talking point Candace has had, and it's one that I guarantee she isn't looking up at all. Candace will replay this same clip of her talking later in the week, during a beef she has with Cardi B, and she will omit the things she just said about white people dying more often. I think she knows the truth because when it happens on the show, she practically shouts at her clip guy to stop the clip. It's pretty fucked up. Police violence is the worst on Black people and on poor people, and more so if they happen to be both. But also if they are in the wrong place at the wrong time and are seen being too bold for their own good. It's disgusting, and her covering for the system highlights, I believe, a central tenet of the Christo-fascist rhetoric. That being that local police are to be trusted and respected, until the bad apples among them show themselves. But the higher grade law enforcement, such as the FBI, are to be distrusted, until they prove themselves worthy allies of the fascist leadership. That all said, this cop was fired or quit from 6 different police departments in 4 years. He had been let go for lying, abuse of power, being drunk at work, violence, driving like an asshole, you get the picture. The Fraternal Order of Police Union, even with his shit record now being known by the public, and given what he was literally caught on camera doing, is pushing for him to be reinstated as an officer. They did the same push for the cop that killed George Floyd here.
Yeah. Also, the bit about the funding being flushed down the drain and not put towards the community.
Yeah.
If you actually go to the area, in George Floyd Square.
Yeah.
That area. It's pretty nice, and the neighborhoods around it, the people that were affected by it, the people that had houses just broken or destroyed from it, they got repairs.
Yeah, like...
They were helped by the city to go, hey...
Well, that and what I think Candace would find the most offensive is they built a scrap metal Black Power fist
Yeah.
in the center.
Mm-hmm.
They put up their own stop signs for people to fucking stop because they got tired of people blowing through that whole section. They put up their own stop signs, and the city learned its lesson when they burned down the 3rd precinct, and they're letting the people control that area.
Yeah.
The food store where Floyd was killed outside of, they put up concrete barriers around where he died.
Yeah.
And there's no end of flowers and all kinds of other stuff there. But yeah, they do tours through the area, and locals tell the people, you know, like what happened and why it all still matters and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, the city of Minneapolis is letting that area just be its own thing.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of push, like the neighborhood around them doesn't want the city coming in and destroying what was done. They want it to be a living memorial.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, like, but Candace moves on into her comments section, which I don't usually like to fuck with, but this is a callback to the last show, so.
I actually did want to at first read this comment from Annette because I always try to be correct and accurate, and we were speaking about the artist prayer of Harmony Dillon, I think it was about a week ago, where I said that I like Harmony Dillon, she does great work. I felt that that prayer was completely inappropriate, and I ran you some facts about what that prayer meant and what Sikhism was from the BBC website. This person connected with me, her name is Dashmesh, and she wrote, "Hello, Candace, I love to watch your show and learn a lot from it. You described my religion in a wrong way yesterday. You read 5 tenets of Sikhism, which included that God is without form and gender. This is totally false information, and you should have checked your facts before reading this line. I am born into this religion and know more than internet sources. We are not taught that our God is without gender. This upset me because in your live chat and the comment section, there were remarks made about my religion which were demeaning. My reason for reaching out to you on this platform was to make sure that you read this, and please let your listeners know that you did wrong by bringing gender in the tenets. I honestly think that Dylan should not have read the Ardas on that stage. Probably the only Sikh from the 1% count who watches your show would like to have you correct the wrong information given to people for her religion. Thank you and God bless." I said, of course, I will absolutely do that. I'm never trying to give bad information. I think that almost speaks to my point that nobody knows what this is, and that's why you and I are agreeing that it was inappropriate to do this at the RNC convention, but I did not at all mean, I literally just read the description that was on the BBC website. I don't know why I did that. I don't even trust the BBC for writing the correct information, but I wanted to read your comment as a make good, because that is not what I am about. Rather, I'm a person that tries to keep my talk pure, which is why I'm going to let you guys in on a little wireless hack that can cut your cell phone.
Oh, fuck you. Fuck you. God fucking. Oh, Lord. Lord. Okay.
I love the backpedal of like, I got this from the BBC website. Really? You couldn't have bothered? If you don't trust the source, you don't use the fucking source.
Also, I thought that anything that doesn't imply a fucking cisgendered something, you know, you like to look into.
Well, like,
or sorry, no.
Was it? Would it have been too much? I'm just saying. I know she has at least 4 people on her crew, maybe more.
Yeah.
Would it have been too much for any one of them, rather than going to the BBC, who they don't trust, to get information, would it have been too much for them to fucking call a Sikh temple and be like, hey, can you explain this?
Yeah.
I work for so-and-so. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And to which a proper Sikh would probably be like, I don't know who that is, but what's your question?
Yeah.
You know? Or maybe they do. Maybe they're fans. You don't know until you reach out. I would like to think they could have done that, or they could have looked up Sikhism on a website about it, maybe from a church.
About it?
That does it, yeah. If you want to find out the basic tenets of Catholicism, you can go to the Vatican website.
I mean, shit, yeah.
Or any church. any church that has a website.
Yeah.
They usually have a About Us section or what we believe or some other shit like that.
I mean, fuck, it's not even that difficult either to, like, set up an appointment with one. Like,
Yeah.
When I went to go and visit that one Catholic church, just because I was like, it's an old
Yeah.
Catholic church, I want to see it.
Yeah.
When I went to go and visit them, I called them up and because they didn't have much information on their website as
Yeah.
for, you know, what times things were going, and I was like, hey, I'm coming on a Saturday. When is y'all's hours for when you're doing stuff? Because I would like to visit,
Yeah.
not participate.
Yeah.
And they told me what times, and they said, but if you come a little bit earlier, you'll be in time for service.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, thank you. No, thank you. But,
Yeah.
you know, if I was actually curious about Catholicism, I'd go during
Mass.
Mass, and, you know,
Yeah.
show up and go, hey, I don't know jack shit about this religion, Mr. Priest guy. Mind explaining it to me?
Right. Well, so, I cut it off there just before she used her apology to roll into an ad read for Pure Talk Wireless.
Yeah.
You're all very welcome.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to leave it there just enough. So, she reads several minutes of comments, and most of it is skippable, but then she says this, and I laughed hard.
Bliss Grimmy. By the way, guys, I forgot to tell you this. The new Standis Cup has dropped. Go to clubcandace.com. On the front, it says conspiracy theorist, and on the back, it says don't care, right? Because that's how we are, right? Built different, don't care is the new Standis Cup. So make sure you get yours before we sell out, and we will obviously take them off again once we actually hit 3 million subscribers, which would be a dream if we could do that by the end of this year. That is my actual dream. Okay, Nicholas.
Now, I laughed mostly because I swear I had named one of our last show clips Conspiracy Theorists Don't Care. Which is this one again.
Okay? So while everyone else is going to be all buttoned up, and if you're watching Fox News and CNN, we're waiting for official information. Who's giving you that official information? Is it the same people that are trying to kill him? Is it the same people that have been using increasing rhetoric that might inspire other people to want to kill him? Because I'd rather not wait for the official information, okay? I would like to understand what's actually happening. So yes, to answer your question, I have concerns. I have concerns that which I think are completely understandable and justifiable when we are leading up to an election and all of America is fearful that something might happen to Trump because they hate him in a way that I have never seen. Ever seen hatred towards this one individual like never before, and we know what the reason is, because Trump is not in their club. Okay, let's just face it. Democracy is an illusion. They've been picking presidents for who knows how long, and Trump came along and didn't think twice about it. They thought there's no way this man's going to win. The full media was against him, and somehow he got through. He beat Hillary Clinton. It shocked them. The establishment did not win the 2016 election. So what did they do? Well, in 2020 they rigged the game. I mean, this is something Don Lemon asked me the other day. Do you think the 2020 election was rigged, Candace? Do you think the 2020... Yes! Yes! Check! Oh, what do you feel about people calling you a conspiracy theorist? I don't care if you're calling me a conspiracy theorist. I literally don't care because I know the origins of that term.
Yeah, so I named that clip from episode 13, Conspiracy Theorists Don't Care.
Yeah.
When I heard her say that's on her new cup, I burst out laughing.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening over earbuds in a Target, doing my job.
Yeah.
And I lost my shit. I had to hear it a few times to be like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I told your mom about that, and she was like, oh, Lord, it's like you understand how she thinks. It's like, I've listened to so much of this, I kind of do.
Yeah.
I didn't expect her to put it on a fucking cup that she wants to sell like however goddamn many of, though.
Well,
and that cup is not available signed.
Well, that's some bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still $60.
Fuck that.
Yeah.
Also, this...
It's not available signed yet. Maybe she'll sign something.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
But she used something in there.
Yeah.
That...
Mm-hmm.
Built different, don't care.
Yeah. That's from her Andrew Tate buddy.
Yeah, here's
Don't
here's
care,
the thing.
built different. She uses that clip. I save y'all from all that shit.
See, she. There's YouTubers out there that I watch that make absolute memes out of people like Andrew Tate and Alex Jones.
As they should.
Like most of the internet does, at least on my side of it.
Yeah.
And they use the built different statement as when they're doing real good in a game and everybody else is just doing ass, and they're like, what the fuck, dude? And they're like, I don't know, I'm built different. And somebody else said, nah, man, you just built wrong. You came in the box and you was missing some parts.
Some of you got glued together when you should have been stitched, and we don't know how that happened.
Yeah, so it's that's something that I think about whenever somebody just says, I'm built different. I'm just like, nah, you built wrong, man.
So, that was all of episode 30. Episode 31 starts with this.
All right, everybody, an evening live. This is so exciting. We're really doing this because we had some construction going on, and so the noise was not ideal for an earlier broadcast. But this is also exciting because Biden is going to attempt to speak, and we're going to be able to process that. And I'm so glad that you guys want to watch that live with me. Leading up to that, though, you guys. So you totally remember that guy. The night that they attempted to assassinate Donald J. Trump at the rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. His name was Greg Smith. He was the first person to be interviewed, conveniently, by BBC. They always seem to be the men on the scene when these terrible terroristic tragedies take place. And you remember him, I'm showing you a photo here right now. He's got the MAGA hat on, and I think that MAGA hat has fake hair attached to it. That's not his real hair. And it's orange. And he was incredulous. You'll recall the interview. He was just going, there's just no way this is happening. I watched the guy, I watched the shooter climb up, I signaled to the Secret Service, I signaled to the local police, and nobody did anything. Well, then I thought to myself, isn't it weird that we haven't heard from Greg Smith since? Is that not an odd thing that we have not heard from Greg Smith since? Has any reporter or journalist done their duty and attempted to reach out to Greg Smith for a longer format interview? And so I sent a tweet out, hey, if anybody knows who Greg Smith is or where Greg Smith is, I would love to get in touch. And guess what? I got in touch with him immediately. So it certainly was not that difficult to get in touch with Greg Smith. Of course, what's actually going on is that they're trying to memory hole what has happened. They want to move on quickly. They want to talk about Kamala Harris. They want to talk about protests in D.C. They want to talk about Bibi Netanyahu. Anything, please, anything. Except for what happened that night, when some people got caught trying to inspire a civil war and probably an even larger war. So what happened when I got in touch with Greg Smith? Well, I asked him a very particular question. I said, Greg, was there anything that the media was intentionally leaving out about the shootings? Surely you communicated what you saw, and you probably saw a lot more than you even presented that night to us. Surely they followed up with you. Was there something that you saw that they are not telling the American people? And he immediately said, yes. So I'm going to tell you guys what he told me. It's quite shocking. We're going to go through this. We are not going to let this go. Consider me the Nancy Grace of the Trump assassination attempt, because I'm telling you, I'm not going to let this one fly. That's what we have coming up tonight on Candace.
Yeah, so Candace calling herself a new Nancy Grace or whatever would be laughable if Nancy Grace wasn't also a horrible human. For those blissfully unaware, Nancy Grace was a Fox News show host that often pursued a sensational angle and badgered people with questions on her show. She is blamed for pushing at least one person to suicide after being badgered on her live show. She didn't have a great reputation among her co-workers and employees at Fox, and when her ratings dipped, she was replaced with other people that were still terrible, but in other ways. As for the other shit she said, Candace either doesn't know how investigations work or is living on the high of being live and watching those numbers tick up as she says inflammatory shit. Either way, it's a bad look. And she actually does get into the further words of Greg Smith, who we spoke about a little in the last episode of this show. I was on the fence about whether or not I believed his story. We'll cover my position on it as we go on. Now, what follows in a bit is a 4-minute story. I think it's interesting that Candace compared herself to Nancy Grace a moment ago, but Nancy Grace would have had this guy on her show, even via remote. Candace instead treats us to her own version of what her and Greg Smith spoke about. which I presume happened on a phone call. She isn't in her studio for this one, but she has a fucking crew. They could have set up something to show the story of this guy for her viewers. But instead, we get the Candace filter on it.
I'm going to keep reminding you that Donald J. Trump is supposed to be dead. That is a reality. There was a plan put in place to make all of America watch live as their favorite former president, who is running for re-election, was shot on stage in Butler, Pennsylvania. That didn't happen because, by the grace of God, he turned his head at the exact right moment. A lot of other things then ensued, and the BBC was on the ground, and they gave this interview to, Greg Smith rather, gave an interview to the BBC, and we, like I said earlier, he was just incredulous. He said, there's just no way. I can't tell you enough how much they completely allowed this to happen. He heavily implied they allowed this to happen. So when I reached out to Greg, I said, what was the follow-up? Were you and your friends interviewed? Were you brought into an FBI bureau? Or were did the feds arrive onto your doorstep asking for all of the information, asking for all of your footage? And here's what he told me. He told me, no, but the state police did that night. He said that night he sat in a police cruiser for hours and gave his testimony about what exactly it is that he saw. He said he even drew them a map. Physically, he drew a map as he was in the car. Here's where the shooter was. Here's where this was. Blah, 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 blah. He also communicated to me that there was an unknown person who chose not to identify himself that also sat along in the police cruiser. Said he and his friends suspected that it might have been a Fed, but that person chose not to identify themselves again. And so when I asked that question, was there any information that the media seems to not be communicating that you saw that night? Here's what he said. He said, yeah, Candace, there is. It's the portion where I made it very clear that there was also a Fed of some description that was armed with a gun in a second-story building that was about 15 to 20 yards behind Thomas Matthew Crooks. So if Thomas Matthew Crooks is here, he's saying that 15 to 20 yards at a higher range, at a higher story rather, sat a Fed throughout the building. And he actually sent me this diagram I'm about to show you so that I could see what he was talking about. I said, I can't believe this. I can't believe I've heard stories about a second-story building that there may have been some Feds. It has not been clear to me that this was just 15 to 20 yards behind Matthew Thomas Crooks, right? So take a look at this. Take a look at this diagram that I'm showing you right now. You can see, and he is pointing, those are the two windows where the Feds, he is alleging, a Fed, one singular Fed, was in that window, and he very much, as you can see, would have had access to the assassin, the would-be assassin, rather. So what happened here, I said, how are you certain that that person was in fact a Fed? He said, well, because me and my friends, while we were drinking, we were looking up, we were going, oh, hey, it makes sense that this Fed is in the building, and they noticed that he had a sleeve tattoo, and they noticed this because when he perched out of the window, they saw his arms, and they said, yeah, he's probably there to make sure we don't do anything crazy, I don't know, but obviously it makes sense that there's going to be Feds surrounding everywhere. So you have to imagine his shock, you have to imagine his surprise when he then watched somebody scale a building with a gun, frantically try to notify people, and that gunman, that Fed, is not taking any shots at Thomas Matthew Crooks. That seems strange to you? What's also strange to me, in my head, I thought this is kind of weird, because didn't we just watch Kimberly Cheadle testify that there were no Feds, or rather, she said there was no Secret Service that were in a perimeter in front of the shooter, the would-be assassin? Let's run that back. It was actually when AOC was questioning Kim Cheadle. Take a look.
Now, for the record, I don't buy any of this shit.
No.
But Candace is a fan of saying that the media is doing a memory hole on the entire thing, and that's simply not true. She goes on to play a clip of AOC interviewing Kim Cheadle, the former Secret Service boss. I want you all to pay attention to what is being discussed.
Is there a standard perimeter that the Secret Service establishes around an event, or are those perimeters independently determined per event and scenario?
There is no standard. Every event and every venue is different and treated as such.
So each event has a different perimeter that is established depending on the logistics of that event. Now, you established earlier that the building upon which the shooter operated from was outside of that established perimeter, correct, for the Butler, Pennsylvania event?
It was outside of our secure perimeter, yes.
Now, that building was, I believe, 500. How far away was that building from the president?
It was approximately 200 yards.
200 yards. Now, the individual used an AR-15 in order to act out his assassination attempt. An AR-15 has a range of about 400 to 600 yards. My question is, why does the Secret Service perimeter, why is the Secret Service protective perimeter shorter than one of the most popular semi-automatic weapons in the United States?
There are a number of weapons out there with a number of ranges. Again, an advance was completed. The determination of the perimeter, I'm not going to speak to specifics, but there are a number of factors that are taken into account when we determine our perimeter. Some of it has to do with terrain, some of it has to do with buildings, some of it has to do with assets and resources that are available.
And so what I'm hearing is that a perimeter was not established outdoors in an outdoor venue that would prevent an AR-15, which is one of the most common weapons used in mass shootings, from being able to be within the range of Secret Service protection.
A perimeter was established, and even though there were buildings that were outside of that perimeter, it wasn't just that building. There were a number of buildings in the area, and there was overwatch that was created to help mitigate some of those buildings.
Okay, so you just heard what was talked about. AOC asked some pretty specific questions and didn't badger Kim Cheadle, but also took her to task for the massive fuck-up. Compared to the other sessions we heard from the same interview, hers was probably the least cringe in my opinion. But Candace, who loves to cast the memory hole accusation at people in media, follows up with this immediately.
So now, I'll tell you why that's important, because there have been a lot of people that have said, yes, there was multiple shooters, and by the way, these aren't people on the internet that are developing conspiracy theories, this is CNN. They're already trying to memory hole this, but the day after the shooting, they confirmed that there were 3 different shooters.
So, she followed that clip immediately with this bullshit story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I looked into it, of course, and CNN did not say that. Ever. This accusation has fuck all to do what was said on the clip. Candace goes on to say something I found surprising. It's not so much what is said and what comes next, but what it implies.
3 different shooters that night, and we're supposed to assume one obviously was the would-be assassin, and then in the confusion, people that were trying to take out the would-be assassin. But here's what's interesting. I want you guys to take a listen to this. Some people have pointed out, and for those of you who know how to shoot, perhaps you hunt, that it's quite strange that when TMZ presented footage of Matthew Crooks taking the shots from the rooftop, he had no kickback. His head didn't go up. You don't see his arm go back when he fires the first shot. So I'm going to show you that. Now, again, we can't establish that for a fact. It's taken on an iPhone. Maybe it's grainy footage, and therefore we can't be certain if it didn't capture it. But I'm going to tell you, we slowed this down a few times, and I want you to look at this very closely because I've looked at it about 200 times today, and I am telling you, I do not see a kickback. Take a look at this.
Now, to me, this clip implies possibly several things. Maybe Candace doesn't know that AR-15 build rifles have a small amount of recoil by design, and can be modified to have significantly less. Or she does know this and is trying to throw attention off the use of an AR-15 used in the shooting. I'm willing to lean more towards the line of thought that she's trying to distract from the AR-15 being used at all. I'm saying this because Candace is friends with and has been around gun aficionados in her career. The availability of AR-15 rifles has been a hot-button issue for several years now. Many people in conservative politics have a stake in companies that produce those types of guns.
Mm-hmm.
For her to feign ignorance of this is almost appalling, but I have no evidence for my assertions, so I have to lean into the idea that she doesn't know how this works. Because I have learned over several decades that what I would assume is evil is usually just ignorance dressed up.
Mm-hmm.
So for now, with lack of evidence for my own assertion, I'll assume Candace doesn't know how these guns work or why they are so prized. Candace seems desperate to go with a multiple shooter theory here. She goes on to play a video by a YouTube person named Chris Martinson, with an E in the middle of the name. Anyway, Martinson is known for his work on the Peak Prosperity channel, and he holds a PhD in pathology from Duke and an MBA from Cornell, so he isn't a total idiot. But he also isn't an expert in this kind of stuff. He is at best a learned observer. Candace gives her take on his video before she plays it.
Now, another thing that's interesting is that a person named Chris Martinson, he put together a very long video, which everybody should watch, and we'll include it in the links description after this video. But he basically broke down the different sounds. He, too, establishes that he's hearing 3 different guns, and that the first round of shots does not sound like the second round of shots that we hear. And he does a very good job breaking this down. But first, I want you to listen to the original shots that are fired so that you can hear this with your own ear, because it's actually better for you to analyze this yourself and go, well, actually, yeah, these do sound like they're coming from different weapons. Take a listen to this. And yes, you're going to hear yelling over this because we did not want to in any way edit the footage here. Take a listen.
Decide for yourself, does 1, 2, and 3...
Now, I'm not going to play his video or audio here. Mostly because I think this kind of shit is gross, and also because I can't verify that it's accurate. I will say that people can find it for themselves if they just have to hear it or watch it, but I'm not playing it here. The audio file presented does have what I would describe as multiple shots fired from a very different set of guns, but again, until there is some official word either way, I'm not touching this further. That said, here's Candace's theory about the whole event. Yes.
Also, yes, there was multiple shooters. The guy on the roof and the Secret Service agents shooting at him.
Yeah, I know.
I could imagine that more than one guy that could see him took a shot because, we're not just going to entrust the one guy that's got the angle to take the shot.
No.
Given where the rooftop was and the amount of agents that not only leaped to Trump to, act as body armor, but also the ones that were taking the shots at the guy with the gun.
Yeah.
I could imagine there's more than one shot, and given how some agents are allowed to carry different models of handguns to their preference, yes, there's a standard issue, but
there's a little bit of room there. Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing with military service arms of, yes, there's a standard issue, but spend enough time in there, you can bring in your own.
That, and they had Secret Service snipers, but they also had snipers from the police forces in the area.
Yeah. So, of course, there's gonna be multiple shots from different kinds of weapons.
Yeah,
because,
within a few seconds.
Yeah. Because it's called, that guy's firing his shot and then his oh shit shots.
Yeah. And this kind of proves the whole good guy with the gun theory, because there were good guys with guns there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so...
Unless we just want to forget the people shot at the guy with the rifle.
Yeah.
They clearly died from getting shot by somebody.
I listened to the clip she plays of the Martinson stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a moment in there where he goes, okay, and that one was the kill shot.
Yeah.
Like, because all the gunfire just kind of stops.
Yeah.
There are, again, there's multiple shots, but yeah, I'm listening to it and I'm thinking, well, duh, they were shooting at him.
Yeah.
Like, come on, lady.
Of course they lit up the rooftop.
Yeah. That said, here's Candace's theory about the whole event. And keep in mind, it's devoid of much in the way of actual evidence.
What do you guys think? It seems like we're not getting any answers. Obviously, Kim Cheadle has virtually said nothing, really, other than I'm just going to have to pass this over to the FBI. But when you're hearing from people who are really familiar with guns, when you're hearing from people who have served and telling you, this sounds like a higher powered weapon, this is a different sound of a different weapon, you can tell by the rapid pace, the first 3 sounds very controlled. Do you believe that? Do you believe that we're getting the full picture? Well, let me tell you the most surprising thing that Greg Smith told me. He told me that, again, all he saw in those windows was the person when he leaned out who was in that second story window. He only saw one person, which I find to be quite odd. Why would there just be one person in that window? And they saw his sleeve tattoo. And the next time that he saw that sleeve tattoo, it was because there was a person standing over the dead body of Thomas Matthew Crooks. So we're going to show you that photo with the man holding a sleeve tattoo. With the sleeve tattoo. Now, is that the guy that was on the roof directly behind him? The story that we're getting, by the way, because they are acknowledging that there were men in the second story building, was that, yeah, there were men in that second story building, or a man in the second story building, but then once Matthew Crooks got onto the roof, they ran down. Does that make any sense? Can we just all use a little bit of common sense right now to determine whether or not what I just said makes any sense? So you have a perfect shooting distance 20 yards away from a shooter that is lower than you because you're above him. And you see that he is on the roof. And rather than taking the shot and shooting him, you decide to go down to climb his ladder and then stand above him. Again, we are just not getting the full picture here, and it's very obvious that they want us to move on. I have given you my theory. I believe that the state attempted to assassinate Donald J. Trump in order to hoist us into the next World War.
See, I just wanted to give everyone a second to pause here and reflect on what she just said before I let her finish. And here we go. There is a little more.
Saying this for months on my show, and I think people are now coming around to the fact that I have been correct. I've been saying this for longer. I've been saying this on my old show, that it's very obvious that the elites want World War III, right? It's the only way that they can hit that great reset button every single time. You just have to bomb a bunch of stuff, cause chaos, and then you get to assert new dominance in the world because you're not original enough to get dominance the correct way through your ideas. And so they've been itching for war with Russia. They've been itching for war with Iran. And the first thing that they tried to sell to us was that Iran had hatched some plan to assassinate Trump at the Butler, Pennsylvania rally. Again, does that make any sense to you? Like I said, Trump was supposed to die that night, and we were supposed to be all angry and emotional and reactive and say, yeah, now, rah, 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 we want war because we want justice for whoever did this to Trump. That was their plan. It failed because he is alive today. But don't worry, now they're still going to remind us, which is going to bring me, obviously, to Bibi Netanyahu in Congress today. But before we get to that, guys, I'm going to encourage you to check out our new store, which is on Sticker Mule. It's a great website. It's packed with awesome Candace Owens merch, including stickers, t-shirts, and much more. So go to stickermule.com/Candace and check it out now. A big portion of the sales will go directly to supporting the show, supporting our mission to empower communities and to promote free thought, allowing yourself the permission to think without fear of being called a conspiracy theorist. So whether you want to show your support or just grab some cool gear, we have you covered. Once again, go to stickermule.com/Candace. So go check it out now.
So, mostly because I needed a mental break. Mm-hmm. I went and checked out Sticker Mule as I look into all of her advertisers. I'm not sure that Sticker Mule knows who Candace is. And I'm not certain that they would care. It's a print-on-demand site that offers custom stickers, labels, magnets, buttons, packaging, t-shirts, and other shit you can brand. Such as with Candace's stuff, you can get temporary tattoos with her signature. Or coasters, for example.
I thought a Catholic of her standard would be against tattoos.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And the temporary is just the temptation of the sin.
Well, the fucked up thing is, given her views on the gay and trans community, one of the tattoos, like they're tattoos of her signature. Mm-hmm. One of them is like black on a white background.
Okay.
The other one is rainbowy. My favorite one, though, was the coasters.
Oh, God.
Because, that said, we have no coasters at home. And the idea of putting my monthly double shot of scotch on her face is slightly appealing. But at the cost of $10 for $9, they're just cardboard, and I doubt they'd last very long. That said, you can order up to 10,000 of them.
What the fuck?
For just over $2,800.
What?
So maybe that's a steal for someone.
I'd rather get a Pedro Pascal fucking coaster.
Right. At least that's supporting a small businessman that's licensed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pillow Pascal. Look that one up, folks.
I swear it was him. He was on probably SNL, and they got him one of those Pedro Pascal pillows.
Yeah.
That has that pattern on it, so you can like swipe your hand across it, and it changes the picture of it,
like you did in the Nick Cage movie.
Yeah. He has one of himself, and he swiped it, put it under his head, and he just laid down on the couch.
That's great. So, back to the show.
All right, guys, let's get into this. Everything's trending on Twitter, obviously. In case you missed it, it'd be hard for you to miss it because I'm at a place right now where I just think that the left and the right have just become the same. Do you know what I mean? Is anybody else feeling that way, that like we're just actually the same, reversed at different times, and we just like pick our issue in which we become leftists and we go, okay, this is the issue where actually I don't believe in free speech, I don't believe in free anything, and I think we should send our money overseas. Like that's like kind of what it feels like, and it's usually some social justice issue. But I particularly noticed this today because Bibi Netanyahu was set to address the House and the Senate, actually, a joint Congress, and leading up to this, obviously, people were heavily upset. We knew there were going to be protests. We knew that people that are pro-Palestine were going to be outside protesting his arrival. I think actually even somebody released maggots at the hotel that he was staying at in D.C. And of course, there's only one lone congressman who has been my favorite congressman for the last 3 years. I've had him on my previous show, Thomas Massey. He was the only person who said, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm not going to attend this because why do we need to have Zelensky? Why do we need to have Bibi Netanyahu addressing Congress? In fact, Israel addresses our Congress more than any other country, at least since the last 20 years. They tend to address our Congress a lot. And I just don't see...
Yeah, so Candace isn't entirely wrong here. Maggots, mealworms, and other pests were introduced all around the Watergate Hotel during Netanyahu's stay inside common areas as a form of protest. And yes, Israel has addressed Congress more than any other country, at 10 visits. And France is a close second at 9 visits. But Thomas Massey was not the only person to protest the visit. At least a dozen notable politicians declined to be there, including Vice President Harris, who cited a scheduling conflict. Candace goes on to discuss her views on the Netanyahu visit, insisting that Bibi wants America to go to war with Iran for reasons. While this isn't new from him, Israel has ramped up the rhetoric recently. That said, Candace drags it out while she waits for Biden to speak in an official address. I would have clipped that to play here, but Candace talks over almost the entire thing, speaking back and forth with her production team during the speech. The speech goes on for like 12, 16 minutes, something like that, and they don't let 30 seconds pass without talking over the man. It's basically an unfunny and almost infuriating attempt to do a Mystery Science Theater version of the speech. Yeah, it was. I listened to it one time, and when it came to clipping, I was like, nope. I just kept skipping ahead, and I was like, these people don't go for 30 seconds without cutting this guy. Like, yeah, it's fucked up. And most of what he did in the speech was basically read from the letter that had already been made public. It wasn't, I mean, I'm sure it was nice for the people that wanted to hear it, but ultimately I was like, well, all these words are familiar, and then I looked up the letter and I was like, oh, he's basically just verbatiming and, adding a little flair here and there.
See, if it wasn't illegal, it also wouldn't put one's life at risk. The use of a cap gun, like one of those little toy ones,
right, would
be just so useful for them. You know, you're sitting in an echoey chamber like one of those Congress rooms. You just pop it to silence everybody and go, "I'm speaking."
Yeah, he was speaking from the Oval Office too.
Oh,
she's just totally being rude. Like it was a rude thing because it was her and her production people debating whether or not Biden was a fucking AI. Yeah. I had to listen to that. Yeah.
Okay, that is... Yeah. God, there's so many better, like...
The worst part is that she was live. God. She was live doing all of this. Candace follows it with several minutes of letting the audience run wild with accusations.
Of course.
That it wasn't Biden speaking, it was an AI. It's all dumb, and so we're not going to go through it because a comment comes in that I hadn't expected in all of this, along with Candace's reply.
Yeah. Talia writes, Candace, please do an episode going over the details of Project 25. There are so many clips circulating on social media and the facts are needed. I think you're referring to Project, is it 2025, right? I do want to look into that because I feel like everyone just all at once started freaking out about that, and there were very few details on the internet. I know it came out of the Heritage Foundation. They tend not to write anything too insane, so I will look at that. Is it just a case of Republicans being too scared to stand by it because it's like voting season and everyone kind of turns into a neocon? Maybe. Or is it really as bad as CNN says it is? I don't know. I haven't looked into it, but I promise you that I will. I'll do that for tomorrow's episode.
So now, to her credit, she does get to it the next day, and we'll play that in a bit. But before she closes out this day, she goes into a 3-minute run about a flag burner in the Free Palestine protest.
In scary times. I want to say this in closing. These are some tremendously frightening times. A lot of things are happening, and it's very clear that our government is behind the agitation of the things that are happening, whether it's Trump's assassination attempt. Even today, by the way, I shared this on my Twitter and Facebook, and I want you guys to find that when you log off. Suddenly, you had the right acting like the left, and there's a kid who lights an American flag on fire.
It wasn't a kid.
The right is like, this is the left. Here's an image of him. Look at this. This is the left. And I'm like, have we already forgotten January 6th? Like, every time there is a protest anywhere, especially in D.C., there are federal agitators. And I find this kid to be tremendously suspicious. Can you go back to the image of him? I want them to see this. Somebody identify who this is. Not because I want him to get arrested, but because I just would like to know what individual with cameras trained on him, you look on the right there, I think somebody identified that's the Daily Caller, feels so confident in what he's doing that he lights a fire without a mask on, dances around it, he seems to be alone if you go and find the footage, and then instantly causes people on the left and the right to start yelling at each other on the internet. Like, who is that confident? If you're a criminal, you usually cover your face, but this? Like, is it a bonfire? Like, yeah, and you can see he's just agitating a bit. And so my instinct, because I am realizing that, again, the left becomes the right and the right becomes the left, is to go, no, identify this person. Don't tell me that's a leftist. Prove to me that is somebody on the left. Because I don't trust our government. I think the purpose is always to keep us warring within ourselves. Oh, it's left. Oh, it's the right. Also a perfect opportunity to sell to the American people that anybody that's against going to war on Israel's behalf with Iran, which is kind of what Netanyahu said, like, you got to go to war with us, like, we're your greatest allies, and no one ever explains what exactly it is that Israel does for us all the time, that they're our greatest allies. Like, forget you, England, everything that we've done with you guys, this country is our greatest ally. But you look at all that situation, you go, oh, how perfect, how absolutely perfect it is that just outside now there's even more of a reason to, I don't know, I guess just like hate Palestinians and want to, I guess, rush into a war with Israel. I don't even know what the point of that is. So let's first be clear on our facts before we share them, okay? Because you know I'm against burning the American flag. Nothing makes me more upset than that, but I also know when to check my emotions, and I always check my emotions as it pertains ever since January 6th, anything that gets out of hand in Washington, D.C. Because again, these are federal agitators everywhere. I'm going to show you that guy's face one more time. Identify this young man for me. Run it through your software. Tell me who he is. Who are his friends? What school does he go to? Where does he work? That he is this comfortable being filmed just lighting an American flag, which could have, it could have been an act of arson. It could have quite literally caused an issue. I mean, I'm sure he could be arrested for that, considering there's damage to the sidewalk. Who is this confident doing that, if not a Fed? So, again, guys, that is all I'm going to say in conclusion. Do your work. Help us out. Let's figure out who that is. But stay vigilant, and make sure you check out clubcandace.com.
Now, there's a lot to say here. From the top, burning a flag isn't against the law yet. A lot of the protesters did not cover their faces as, like the J6 crowd she mentions, these people were passionate about this and don't care if their faces are shown and known. But also like the J6, I don't think there are federal agitators involved here. I would assume that there are some investigators embedded in the group, undercover, whatever, and there were police beatings. It wasn't without risk for those involved. There may be arrests and charges coming for those rounded up, and we'll have to wait and see. I hope they're okay, if they didn't harm anyone. I don't really care if the burn marks fucked up the sidewalk, considering what they're protesting is a fucking genocide. Now, In case anyone is worried about Candace broadcasting the protesters' names and all of that shit, she hasn't done that yet. I don't think her crowd is all that good at what she would like for them to be good at, because conspiracy theorists aren't great at sussing out truth.
No.
It goes against their nature. Anyway, Candace closes out the show and we get into episode 32. Some bullshit about Cardi B and Project 2025. We'll skip the cold open on this one because it starts with Cardi B and her beef with Candace. I don't care about it or for it, which allows us to cut quite a bit. Anyway, I was more interested in her outlook on Project 2025 in this one. But before we get there, as we always do, let's hear a Candace ad read for another sponsor of hers.
That is all that I'm going to say on that topic. But speaking of education, you guys, I'm so proud to have Grand Canyon University as a sponsor of this show, because they are a private Christian university that's based in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. They believe that they were endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. GCU's mission is to empower virtuous action through higher education by honoring your career calling, your impact, your family, your friends, and your community. You can change the world for good by putting others before yourself to glorify God. Whether your pursuit involves a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, GCU's online, on-campus, and hybrid learning environment are designed to help you achieve your unique academic, personal, and professional goals. The pursuit to serve others is yours. So find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu. All right, guys, we have a lot of...
Yeah, so this school is, of course, problematic. It was established in 1949, and it does boast over 100,000 graduates. In 2004, it became a for-profit college, and in 2018, it reverted back to a non-profit college. In this year, the Department of Education, in this year, 2024, the Department of Education imposed a $37 million fine on the school for misleading students about the cost of its graduate programs.
Ooh.
So that's whatever it is. I don't trust any faith-based education program. I just hope if they're producing medical professionals that, at the very least, are competent and good at their careers. But now, we get into Candace's take on Project 2025. It's over 5 minutes long. Strap in.
And speaking of which, I am certain that all of you saw, just like I did, and I didn't even know what it was, the left freaking out about Project 2025, right? So much so that Trump came out and said, I don't even know what Project 2025 is. I don't know if he disavowed it explicitly, but he essentially said, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. And that may be true. It is...
That's a fucking lie. Moving on.
Something that was put together by the Heritage Foundation, but I was quite shocked to see it trending over on X. I'm going, what is Project 2025? And so then I did just a little dabble, and I will tell you the document that they put together is about 1,000 pages. I certainly have not read it all. But as I just read the first couple of pages, and my sister told me that she read 103 pages of it, and she said, Candace, I'm not really sure what's wrong with 2025, the Project 2025. And I went, really? You haven't come across anything? She's like, no, it's sort of saying everything that we feel about DEI initiatives and things of that nature. And I went, oh, is this one of those things where conservatives are acting like cowards because we're allowing the left to seize the narrative? I call it the game of disavow, where they essentially just create a field of peer pressure, and a bunch of people start asking you about something that you don't even really know what it is or what the person has said or what the thing or the pamphlet says, but you're just like, I disavow it. I disavow, please just stop. I just don't want to be under this attack. That is not the right response whatsoever. It's not the right response. Rather, we should put them, make them say, actually, you tell me, what is Project 2025, and I'll tell you whether or not I support it or I don't support it. Let's go through it point by point. Put them on their toes. So I'm going to tell you, by the way, these are just a couple of bullets, and this is available on Wikipedia. So, Wikipedia is where it's so run by the left and run by the ADL that they're going to try to say the absolute worst things that they can about Project 2025 because they hate us. They hate conservatives. And I read through and I went, there's nothing in this Wikipedia entry that I disagree with. So under a worst-case Wikipedia scenario, here is what they've got here. The philosophical outlook. The main Project 2025 document outlines 4 main aims. Restoring the family as the centerpiece of American life. Dismantling the administrative state. defending the nation's sovereignty and borders, and securing what they believe to be a key to a good life, which is found primarily in family, marriage, children, Thanksgiving dinners, and the like, the person who wrote this writes, and above all, in religious devotion and spirituality. What am I supposed to dislike about this? Have any conservatives said this? By the way, I haven't been paying attention. Have there been conservatives that have said Project 2025 is bad? Because maybe you should ask yourself whether or not they are conservatives. It goes on and says that inflation is ravaging family budgets, drug overdose deaths continue to escalate, and children suffer from the toxic normalization of transgenderism, with drag queens and pornography invading their school libraries. Again, is this not, I don't know, exemplary of our conservative positions? It goes on to say that climate change is something that Project 2025 advises a future Republican president to go further than merely nullifying President Biden's executive orders on climate change, proposes abandoning strategies for reducing greenhouse gas emissions that are responsible for climate change. Yeah, because it's a scam. That is a conservative perspective. Climate change is a scam. They are taking your tax dollars, telling you that they're going to reduce carbon in the air, and they're lying. It's proven over and over again that the IPCC is a hack organization, and they basically pretend like we can have an impact on the environment through means like the Paris Accord, which doesn't even include the biggest contributor to carbon emissions, which is China. It's all a nonsense. It's all a lie. It's all about making you a
Now, I'm going to pause it right here for a second. China has cut its carbon emissions in massive ways by moving a lot of its available cars over to electrics.
Yeah.
And increasing their wind and solar capabilities. So, let's finish off the clip here.
Emotional and agreeing to give the government more power and to give the government more money. Oh gosh, it gets crazier. It says that under Foreign Policy tab that Project 2025 favors neither interventionism nor isolationism. Instead, it emphasizes that all decisions related to foreign policy must prioritize national interests. The horror! The horror! Now I see why people had to walk it back and say that how could we support this? That would make us conservative. I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, I sent a tweet. I'm like, guys, I'm sort of looking into this. Can somebody express to me why we're supposed to be pretending that this document is wrong? And Mike Cernovich offered that, keep looking into it. It may be a Trojan horse. It may be more neocon-y on the topic of foreign policy. And I promise that I will look further into the foreign policy aspects of this document. But I can tell you, by just having a brief look here, Project 2025 sounds pretty good to me. So if I run for president, I want you guys to know in the future, and they step to me and they say, do you Project 2025? I'm going to look them straight in the face and I'm going to say, yes, all of it. That's what we're going to do. We are going to be doing Project 2025. We're going to restore families. We're going to restore faith. And unless you can explicitly point to me what in this document you find problematic, I'm not going to fall for your system of do you disavow and trying to make me fearful to stand by what I deem to be conservative principles. Speaking of which.
So let's start by discussing the Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation is a conservative think tank that was established in 1973. They are a big spender in conservative politics, and aside from attracting money from various donors, many of them are anonymous. They craft policies that are pushed by hard-right and even alt-right politicians and political figures. Candace and Heritage have no direct link, but they are birds of a feather. Anyway, she isn't lying when she says that Project 2025 is a document that is over 900 pages long. And that is normal 8x5 pages. It's a huge read. I downloaded it when I heard about it, shortly before the Heritage Foundation took it down. And I can tell you, if her sister read through the first 100 to 150 pages, she read a lot of backslapping credits and content pages, but she didn't get anywhere near substantive. You have to go deeper for the real stuff. Most of the first 25% or so of the book is about what they hope to accomplish if they have a compliant House, Senate, presidency, and Supreme Court in power. As we currently know, they do have the court and the House. But this plan was crafted especially with the idea in mind that they would have a presidency, especially because so much of what they want done relies on it. Now, people are freaking out about this whole thing because the Heritage Foundation has had previous success with their last big policy push, the Mandate for Leadership, which has also been called Project 1980 on some sites, but it was the guiding light for Ronald Reagan. That particular project was 20 volumes at 3,000 pages long total.
Fucking hell.
By the end of Ronnie Reagan's first year in office, 60% of those policy goals were being implemented. Near the start of the book, and throughout, speaking of the 2025 one now, and through the rest of the episode, they have a LinkedIn-style list of hand-picked candidates for roles within the administration, as well as a training academy layout to prepare these people for their roles. These are mostly jobs that can be appointed without oversight needed by the Senate or another body within the government. There is also a first 180 days playbook that is basically a strategic action plan to be able to implement swift policy changes within the first 6 months of the new administration, laying the groundwork for what is to come. To start, they want to overhaul the entire federal government, including independent agencies like the Department of Justice and the FBI, under direct presidential control. With this power, the president and or his appointees would be able to fire at will whomever doesn't fit the new agenda and possibly take away any legal shielding they may have had in the previous work they may have done. They want the Department of Justice and any related agencies to focus their efforts solely on violent crime, which means grifters basically get a pass, as well as bankers that would take advantage of persons in financial straits. In the same vein, they also want to overhaul civil service appointees to be political appointees that are loyal to the new administration. In Moneyland, they want to abolish the Federal Reserve, abolish income tax, reduce corporate and capital gains taxes on corporations. For the removal of the Federal Reserve, they want to remove government control over the nation's money, and if possible, return to the gold standard. I can tell you this has been a conservative wet dream for a long time, notably among the people that push gold on their shows, like Candace. It would be immediately disastrous. They also want to abolish abortion nationwide, and this includes revoking FDA approval of things like Plan B pills. States would be required to report any abortions performed, if there is legal standing to do so, in an effort to deter individuals from seeking out those services. I probably don't have to say it, but this would increase back alley abortions. And for porn, they would reuse the Comstock Act to ban porn. And while that act pertains to the male, they would use it to enforce a porn ban on the internet, since internet traffic flows over state lines. This was a concern in the early days of the internet. I remember websites from the 90s having warnings on them not just for the age of the person consuming the porn, but also if you lived in one of a dozen states or countries, you were encouraged to click away, as it might have been illegal for you to enjoy what was on offer there. They also want to remove DEI, which is Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion programs in schools and government agencies. Another huge item to go along with this is the removal outright of affirmative action quotas of any type, and the removal of discrimination laws in hiring and employment. Also up is the removal of the first public sector unions like the post office, but also a broader effort to remove trade unions and others, in the language of keeping business operating. They also want to dismantle the Department of Education and promote school choice for parents, pushing for kids to attend private schools over public schools. One of the ways this will happen is that parents will be allowed to sue schools over controversial subject matter being taught. Parents sue a school and win. Now the school system has less money to operate and may lose funds the following year. There is no limit to payouts that can be demanded, no ceiling. In a very real way, this can push a school system for a payout of 10, this can crush a school system. Candace would know, since her family sued the Stamford public school system for a payout of 10% of their legal budget, which was $37,000 when she was a student. But funding for the schools is the main focus of this, and they want to do away with Title I funding entirely, which is a $16 billion funding package, used by many schools that serve low-income areas, and would also eliminate a lot of funding for students with disabilities. And because the pain train never stops, it could eliminate up to 180,000 teaching jobs. And finally, they want the school system to be hurt further by instituting a voucher system for students, where parents can send their child and the funding they would have given to the local school to a private school. This could shut down schools and entire school systems and place kids in schools without standards that would prepare them for college, and without resources they currently have, such as school libraries. For immigration, they want to build the border walls as a no-matter-what situation, dismantle Homeland Security, and increase the Border Patrol Army. Also on the chopping block are climate change initiatives and goals, which includes leaving the Paris Climate Agreement and promoting oil and gas over green solutions. There are other carve-out items as well, further in that include ending subsidies for buying an EV, stopping the rollout of charging stations, and ending the promotion of green alternatives. They also want to reduce the role of the EPA in massive ways, including any current oversight they have. In many ways, they want to lower taxes and, in so doing, reduce federal spending on many of the things that Americans enjoy without thinking about it, such as Medicaid and Medicare having new requirements for obtaining and keeping them, which includes putting everyone currently on Medicare onto the worst plan, known as Medicare Advantage. This includes senior citizens. For Medicaid, they want to implement a work requirement for it, meaning that even and especially if you are on it and you can't work, you can't get it or keep it. There is no grandfathering in here. Ironic, since that term was used primarily in the Jim Crow South to allow illiterate white people to vote and to shut out everyone else. Anyway, it would be a total and complete loss of health care for millions of people. Further on, they want to make it much harder for families to receive food assistance and to tighten what they do receive, and this includes the WIC program. They want to be rid of all student loan forgiveness programs, including those given to people in public service jobs. So Candace has a team of people, at least 4 people. I parsed all of this bullshit out in about an hour, and I am not particularly smart. I feel like I didn't get to everything, but there were things that mattered. These were the things that mattered the most to me. I am certain that there are other items in here regarding the police, military, national parks, prisons, and so on. Candace's team could have easily sussed all of this out and more, and I would be surprised if the entire team is ignorant of this material. It just seems unlikely given her affiliations. I encourage everyone to read this bullshit for themselves, and to that end, I will be including a link in the podcast description to a public resource for it. I apologize for not providing links to things in the past, and I am trying to do better. I'm one guy with a full-time job, a family, and I'm literally paying out of pocket for this show to exist, so I do my best to make it all work. I am sorry that I can't do more, really. But I will link to a PDF of the book. I believe this is all we have for this week, but I have to tell you all, next week's episode will likely just cover 1 or 2 of Candace's episodes from this past week. It has that much bullshit in it. Anyway, let's drink something that I hope isn't gross, or at least smells better than Fabuloso or Pine Sol or a dollar store knockoff.
Yeah. Hopefully it smells better than fucking Fabuloso or goddamn.
Well, this is another Blue Sun sour soda, and it is blueberry.
Bad tempered blueberry.
Bad tempered blueberry. Okay. Oh, that one came right up.
I gotta tell you,
pour it up.
It doesn't.
All right. This one.
I'm getting a little bit better about being even with it. But
this almost smells pleasant.
No.
No?
You know what I smell?
Well, I had COVID, and the sense of smell comes and goes. What do you smell? Well,
okay, so you know the chemical that burned my face bad enough that I know that it smells like, okay, fuck, I'm trying to remember the name of the company.
It doesn't matter. They're all bad.
Yeah, but it's a very specific company that...
What, Biolab or some shit?
Oh, fuck. It's close.
Doesn't matter.
Anyways.
Anyway.
They produce this and it even looks the same color. They produce this sanitizer.
Yeah, no, I know the one you mean, yeah.
That is this blue color.
Yeah.
That has this smell that's like, it's an alright smell. But unfortunately, I have washed greasy chicken trays with it enough that I have that smell
in the face.
Yeah.
Well, here's the funny thing. At least one of those companies is based in St. Paul. Their name
Ecolab.
is Ecolab. That was
what
it.
It fucking is. Yeah.
Yeah. They're based in St. Paul. Their name is in huge letters on their tower.
Oh, I bet it.
in downtown St. Paul.
Yeah, everybody fears the Ecolab people over the actual city.
Oh, yeah, I'm actually getting it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's go for it. It's sweet.
It tastes like...
It's really sweet.
That's too sweet.
That's very sweet. That's what you would
I
call...
gotta say, though, they did get the tanginess of the aftertaste of the blueberry skin right, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it's like...
I'm not much of a fan of blueberries. Like, I'll eat them if they're in a thing, but... Yeah. Usually I find their skins off-putting.
Yeah.
Like, their skins are really bitter.
Mm-hmm.
The blueberry itself can be sweet, but the skin that comes with it is just very bitter.
Yeah.
I'm not usually into it, but let's see about the rest of this.
I'll choke it down.
I'll say it's got the sweetness of, like, a store-brand Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
You know? Like, it's not terrible.
I feel like they put too much sweetener into the batch.
They put a lot of sugar into that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I realize that it's very late, but do you have anything that you want to add to this before we close out?
Only that... Okay, so...
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I didn't know that this was a thing that apparently they do.
Uh-huh.
But I was scrolling through Reddit, as a degenerate like me does. And on Reddit, at least my end of it, there's a bunch of screenshotted posts from Twitter on there.
Yeah.
Well, the one group that I, oddly enough, followed for their Star Wars shit, not for anything else.
Yeah.
Well, they get a little bit into politics, and during the Olympics, they light up the White House, red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that, but I saw this article, and I stopped when I not even an article, just this where'd it go? This picture, and it just said at the Q Storm, and I was like, I gotta take a look at this, and it says, warning, the White House has turned red, white, and blue for the second night in a row. It's happening.
What?
And then right underneath it, readers added context. The White House is lit up red, white, and blue for the 2020 Olympics. And all of the Reddit comment posts underneath it were, I don't know what conspiracy theory this one is, but, like, I guess we're going to war, or I don't...
Well, it said for the 2020 Olympics?
Sorry, 2024.
Okay.
2024.
I was going to say, I was like, man.
Yeah, 2024.
I mean, Q's behind the times again, but okay. Yeah. No,
which apparently we're doing pretty damn great at Ultimate Frisbee this year.
Huh.
The women's league came in second, but the mixed and the men's league came in first.
Oh, I just saw a thing last night that said that there's a meme storm about the guy who won the pommel horse for America. Apparently we haven't had a pommel horse gold in like 16 years, and this dude was like... They said it looked like he was like napping, and he's like he had on like glasses, and he takes off like his glasses and goes and nails the pommel horse, and then like just like a king just kind of like saunters off. Yeah. So apparently he's one of the heroes of the internet right now.
Oh, see, the fucking pommel horse is the weirdest gymnastic thing.
Yeah.
Because it's just like it's this stand that has handlebars.
Yeah.
That you just grab onto and you like fucking twirl your legs around it. And it's impressive to watch people do it because it's like, holy shit, is your lower back and your upper back not connected at all?
Right. Well, that, and I mean, there's so much, like, there's a lot of arm strength.
Oh, yeah.
You have to even do that. Like, not to mention the rest of the body, like the abs and shit.
Like, yeah.
I mean, anybody that can do that, I would be afraid to fight them.
Oh, yeah. I know.
Like, I would be afraid to fight them unless, like, they were really tired.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be like, does it hurt to walk? I feel like we're on fair ground now. We can fight, you know? Like, oh, God. All right, well, I'm going to hit the stop button here. Have a great week, everybody. And, oh, man, I'm not looking forward to starting to cut tomorrow's episode because I've heard what I have to do, and...
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. It's... Oh, yeah, the Olympics are involved a little bit, but the rest is just batshit.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for now. Bye.
Bye.